Welcome to my channel. In my channel, you can watch various type of fiction and fantasy audiobook. If you want more video like this, please subscribe my channel.
High School DxD. 3 years of cohabitation, my life changed forever. Part 1. Article 1. When living together, it is forbidden to enter the other party's room at will, a distance must be maintained. Article 2. It is forbidden to let anyone know that we have signed an agreement. Article 6. During the period of cohabitation, it is forbidden to. Article 13. After the male party graduates, he must take the initiative to annul the engagement. Luo Yu stared at the densely written agreement, completely bewildered. He had been single until death in his past life. After finally transmigrating and being reborn, he actually got a fiancé for free. Although this fiancé was eager to distance herself from him, she was still a fiancé, after all. Sign the document, and I will give you every single cent of the money I promised earlier. If you have any other requests, feel free to bring them up, as long as I can fulfill them. Sona saw that Luo Yu hadn't spoken for a long time, and she frowned. If he didn't agree, the family engagement couldn't be annulled. The key issue was that the other party was just an ordinary person, so she couldn't use a rating game to annul the engagement. If it were any other pure-blooded devil, they would have already revealed their identity and threatened him. But the education she had received since childhood, along with the constraints of the contract, did not allow her to do such an unscrupulous thing. This was already the best solution she could think of. Besides, they had to live together for 3 years, otherwise, there would be a backlash. Sorry, I was thinking about something else just now. I'll sign the agreement. Luo Yu looked up at Sona. Compared to his impression of her, she was still very young and inexperienced right now. After all, it was still 3 years before the plot began, and she had just entered Kuo Academy. Luo Yu picked up a pen from the table and readily signed his name on the agreement. Anyway, it made no difference whether he agreed or not. Tomorrow, I will send someone to pick you up and help you move your luggage. Sona picked up the agreement and checked it once. Satisfied that there were no issues, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. No need for the trouble. Just give me the address, and I can go there myself. All right then, I'll wait for you at home tomorrow. Sona Sitri didn't stay long at Luo Yu's house, she left right after saying that. Only Luo Yu remained in the living room. Suddenly, a cluster of emerald green light emerged from his left hand. A low and majestic voice came from the light. Brother, your luck is really not bad. If I'm not mistaken, that girl is a devil, right? The pure-blooded kind. Luo Yu pressed his temples and added, she is Sona Sitri, the next head of the Sitri clan, and the younger sister of the current Mao, Seraphal Leviathan. A Mao's sister, that's not good news. Didrag, aren't devils supposed to be quite treacherous? Being this trustworthy is actually unlike their style. Partner, you have a stereotype about devils. Most pure-blooded devils place great importance on their reputation. Luo Yu was speechless. Could it be that all the devils he had cut down previously were just the scum among devils? Besides, it's mainly because your ancestor signed some kind of contract with the Sitri clan, so they have to honor it. The Great War has been over for so long, without that binding them, who would bother with an ordinary person? That was probably it. Otherwise, why would the dignified heir of House Sitri marry a human? Were there humans participating in the Great War back then? Didrag, weren't you there too? Although you were just adding to the chaos. Luo Yu looked down at his left hand, where the sacred gear, boosted gear, resided. I was so focused on fighting that guy in white that I had no time to look at anyone else. Besides, with Maos, gods, and the governor of the fallen angels all present, the presence of a single human was simply negligible. Luo Yu felt that made sense. The true main forces of the Great War were the devils, angels, and fallen angels. Humans, yokai, and the like, even if they got involved, were just background characters. Fiancé. His mouth twitched involuntarily, revealing an undefinable smile. This was the first time he had heard that he had a fiancé. No, when his parents were still around, they used to tease him in a fairy tale tone, saying that a beautiful fiancé would come to find him in the future. They said that 1,000 years ago, his ancestor helped a certain noble win the Great War and signed a contract with them. Once that family gave birth to a daughter, she would marry his ancestor's descendant. Although he was a child back then, he was precocious. Nonsense, right? 1,000 years had passed, and his ancestors for 18 generations had turned to dust. That family still hadn't produced a daughter. It was more likely that their entire family line had died out. Even if this really happened, it was probably just a lie to swindle his ancestor. But when Luo Yu opened the door and saw Sona, who claimed to be his fiancée, he understood immediately. Maybe that family really hadn't produced a daughter all this time. The fertility rate of pure-blooded devils was frighteningly low. Plus, the Great War, his parents spoke of, thinking about it now, wasn't it that very war? His ancestor was likely a human who stood on the side of the devils. The space on the second floor had been modified by magic. The area had been expanded more than tenfold, nearly the size of a football field, and the ceiling had been raised by over a dozen meters. Right in the center was drawn a huge magic circle, extremely complex in structure, blending traces of various systems such as Eastern sorcery, Nordic arcane magic, and abyss magic, with dense runes overlapping each other. Suspended above the magic circle was a fist-sized mass of blood, exuding terrifying pressure and a pure dragon aura. That was the essence blood he had collected after defeating countless dragon species over these years. Whenever those dragon species mentioned this generation's red dragon emperor, they would grit their teeth in hatred. Being pinned to the ground and beaten, then having their essence blood forcibly extracted, was simply the greatest humiliation of their lives. "Ddraig, it's time to start." Luo Yu lay flat in the center of the magic circle and called out to Ddraig. Immediately after, a massive crimson gauntlet wrapped around his left arm, with an emerald green gem embedded on the back of the hand, emitting a dazzling light. This was the true form of the boosted gear, one of the 13 sacred gears. The dragon essence blood, pulled by the gauntlet, turned into thousands of blood threads as fine as cow hair, and followed the pores on Luo Yu's skin surface, frantically drilling into his body. Pain, severe pain. That bone-deep sense of torture was like someone holding a knife and cutting his flesh bit by bit, dismantling his cells. The pain rushed straight to his brain, and even his soul trembled uncontrollably. A transfer notification popped up on Luo Yu's phone earlier. The massive sum of wealth Sona promised had arrived. Following it were over a dozen zeros. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to earn that much in a few lifetimes, let alone dozens of lifetimes. If this money were made public, he could easily squeeze into the top 3 of the world's richest list. But for Luo Yu, worldly money was just a pile of waste paper, nothing more than a string of numbers on a phone. Ddraig, dragon reincarnation, it starts today. Luo Yu casually tossed the phone aside, his tone exceptionally grave. Just because of this pure-blooded devil? Ddraig was somewhat puzzled. It's not like no pure-blooded devils have died at their hands over the years. They just killed a descendant of a current Mao not long ago. That's only part of the reason. The technology for dragon reincarnation is inherently illegitimate, and the underworld has already started to get suspicious. Finishing it early can also reduce some trouble. Ddraig didn't say anything more. The stored dragon essence blood was already sufficient. Dragon reincarnation was just a matter of time. Being cautious was never wrong. The veins on his forehead bulged like earthworms, and his entire face was twisted beyond recognition. His fists were clenched tightly, his fingernails digging into his palms, and blood dripped down his fingers. Luo Yu could only grit his teeth and endure, forcibly holding on through the modification of his body by the dragon essence blood. If he couldn't pull through, all the suffering he had endured would be in vain, and he wouldn't even get anything out of it. "Brother, you have to hold on." Ddraig, deep inside the boosted gear, broke into a cold sweat for him in his heart. In Ddraig's view, Luo Yu as a host might not be the strongest fighter among the past hosts of the boosted gear, nor was he the one with the most dazzling talent. But when it came to madness and guts, all the past hosts combined couldn't compare to him. Luo Yu knew clearly in his heart that he couldn't compare to the host of that guy, the White Dragon Emperor. The guy had ancestral Mao bloodline. He also couldn't compare to the host of the true Longinus, who was a descendant of an ancient hero. Even if his ancestors had been glorious back during the Great War, by now, that bit of glory had long since dissipated. The bloodlines and foundations of the god and devil races had never been comparable to humans since ancient times. If he wanted to surpass gods and devils, he had to take another path. The method Luo Yu came up with was something very special in high school DXD, reincarnation technology. Discard this human body and reincarnate into a god or devil race. Since he was going to reincarnate, he had to choose the strongest race to target. In high school DXD, the only ones qualified to be called the strongest race were dragons. The 5 great dragon kings, the 2 heavenly dragons, the evil dragon that disrupted the 3 realms. Which of them wasn't someone who could walk sideways? Not to mention the infinite dragon god Ophis, who occupied the world's #1 spot from beginning to end, and Great Red. Therefore, Luo Yu was daring enough to run right under the nose of the devil super devil, Ajuka Beelzebub, steal the reincarnation technology, and spend several years tinkering with a unique set of dragon reincarnation. To succeed, one had to sacrifice something first. When Ajuka Beelzebub was developing devil reincarnation, he used countless living beings as stepping stones. And this dragon reincarnation thing, which used dragon species essence blood, simply couldn't find other experimental subjects. If it succeeded, he would take one step past the ceiling of this rotten human shell. If it failed, he could only roll into the bottomless abyss. The night had completely deepened, and moonlight was scattered all over the ground. Luo Yu's dragon reincarnation was still continuing. Time had already passed for 6 or 7 hours. Inside Luo Yu's body, those dragon species essence blood were rampaging like crazy. The transformation process was non-stop. Every muscle and every bone was being torn apart and recast. A layer of black, bloody fluid slowly seeped out of his pores, and that snow-white shirt had long lost its original color, soaked through with black blood and sticking to his skin. The pain slammed into his nerves wave after wave. On the surface of Luo Yu's skin, a thin layer of scale armor slowly emerged. Diedrag recognized it at a glance. Those were dragon scales. This meant that the most difficult first stage of dragon reincarnation had been endured. The dragon species essence blood hadn't been able to destroy Luo Yu, instead, it was swallowed by him and became his own. Diedrag did not hesitate and directly activated the second stage. The magic circle beneath Luo Yu lit up, the silver light faint, spreading out like water. The array acted like a catalyst, forcing the dragon species essence blood inside him to suddenly expand and explode. His entire body also swelled up, blood mist seeped out from his skin, wrapping him into a huge cocoon. The surface of the large cocoon exuded an aura that made one's heart tighten, as if something terrifying was being gestated inside. Diedrag finally breathed a sigh of relief. Just as he had expected, Luo Yu had pulled through. Next, all that remained was to wait for him to break out of the cocoon. Diedrag stared at the large cocoon, unable to help but feel expectant in his heart. A human reincarnating into a dragon species, this was the first time. What exactly was the difference between a dragon turned from a human and a naturally born dragon species? Where were they strong? Where were they weak? Only when Luo Yu finished completely would he know. The night grew deeper. The large cocoon was still expanding outwards, and the volatile aura on its surface grew thicker and thicker, making the very air tremble. Diedrag knew it was almost time. Crack! A crisp sound echoed through the empty second floor. A fissure appeared on the surface of the cocoon, followed by a second, then a third. A powerful and holy aura erupted outward. If Luo Yu hadn't set up a barrier in his room beforehand, every non-human in Kuo town would have felt this power. Even so, wisps of holy aura still drifted out through the gaps in the barrier, dissipating into the night. Diedrag's eyes were full of surprise. I really didn't expect this. I thought you would be a black dragon. She looked at the white, holy dragon before her, her tone filled with surprise. Luo Yu looked down to examine his current appearance. White scales, like meticulously carved jade, covered his entire body layer by layer. His form had elongated to over 10 zhang, and his height was approaching 6 or 7 zhang. His thick dragon claws were wrapped in a mass of white flames, the heat of which caused the space around them to slightly distort. A pair of translucent dragon horns sat atop his head, crystal clear. A pair of enormous white wings unfurled behind him, large enough to completely cover his massive body. A pure-blooded dragon race, a holy light dragon. Luo Yu was somewhat surprised. He felt the holy power flowing within him, along with that extraordinary strength, and he was amazed himself. When he had talked with Diedrag before, both of them thought he would reincarnate as a black dragon. After all, in that mass of dragon race essence blood, black dragon blood made up the majority. Who could have imagined that it would end up becoming a holy light dragon? A rare breed only found in the heaven. He remembered that he had only obtained a small portion of holy light dragon essence blood at the time. Holy light dragons were considered rare species within the entire dragon race, and it wasn't easy to sneak into the heaven. This type of dragon was born with innate holy power, had an absurdly high affinity for light elements, and its physical strength was no worse than that of a black dragon. It was practically a versatile dragon breed, with almost no weaknesses. For Luo Yu, this was already one of the most ideal dragon breeds. My original strength was that of an ultimate class devil, and after the reincarnation, I surged directly to the peak of the ultimate class devil, just a thin veil away from the Mao class. Plus, with the boosted gear, my combat power can at least multiply several times over. Mao class is no longer a threat. If I directly activate Balance Breaker, or even Juggernaut Drive, Luo Yu moved his Holy Light Dragon body slightly and roughly estimated his overall combat power. Seraphal Leviathan, and those 4 seraphs from the heaven, these Super Devil King class individuals were nothing to be afraid of. If he went all out, he might even be able to trade 2 or 3 blows with a Super Devil. Of course, that was only at the level of trading blows. Once the fight was over, he would have to run. The gap between him and a Super Devil was still quite large. Luo Yu transformed back into his human form. After reincarnating as a Holy Light Dragon, the difference in origin between him and Valley's group had been completely leveled, and his was even higher. Future cultivation directions would need to be adjusted. The Holy Light Dragon was his foundation, and his next goal was clear: Dragon King. As for the boosted gear, its development progress could be slowed down a bit. After all, a form like the Aurora Juggernaut Drive wasn't something that could be figured out in a few days. In a luxurious villa, Sona sat in a bedroom filled with a pink, girlish atmosphere, a magical projection floating before her. On the other side was a friend far away in the underworld. The night was already deep. But for creatures like devils who favored darkness, this was the start of a new day. Sona, have you met that fiancé of yours from the human world? How does it feel? On the other side of the projection, Rias Grimori's vivid red hair was dazzling, and her emerald green eyes shone with curiosity. Her features were exquisite, her figure alluring. She was the very image of the goddess everyone fantasized about. She was interested in this human fiancé of Sona's from the bottom of her heart. He's a fairly ordinary human. I can't say I dislike him, but I can't say I like him either. Sona thought for a moment and stated her first impression of Luo Yu. So, he agreed to your conditions. Rias Grimori caught the subtext in Sona's words. He agreed very readily, which surprised me a little. I had prepared a bunch of plans, but it seems they won't be needed now. Sona nodded gently. To be honest, Luo Yu agreeing so readily still felt a bit off to her. Rias Grimori, in the projection, wore an expression that was both happy for her and envious. She was happy that Sona could finally break free from the shackles of her family's marriage arrangement, and whether she would marry in the future would be entirely up to her. The price paid was just a small matter, living with an ordinary human for 3 years, which was simply not worth mentioning. However, the marriage shackles on her were not as easy to shake off as Sona's. Behind her was the Phoenix clan, the Phoenixes. That was a completely different matter compared to an ordinary human. Rias, Kuo Academy is about to start soon. When are you coming to the human world? Probably in about a week. Mother still doesn't really agree with me going to the human world for experience. But this is my only chance, and I absolutely cannot give in. Sona, of course, knew what the chance Rias Grimori was referring to. Recruiting a full set of devil subordinates, defeating her fiancé through raiding games, and cancelling the engagement. If her own fiancé hadn't just been an ordinary human, she probably would have walked the same path as Rias Grimori. But Rias Grimori's mother, Lady Venelana, was a famously strong-willed figure. With her standing in the way, even if Rias Grimori could come to the human world, things wouldn't go smoothly. Speaking of subordinates, Sona hadn't recruited a single one yet, unlike Rias Grimori. The latter had already filled the positions of queen, rook, and knight. It wasn't that she didn't want to recruit, but she simply hadn't found the right people. When she was in the underworld, her family had scouted quite a few candidates. Most of them were decent. But this, decent, could only be compared with the children of those pure-blooded devil families in the underworld. Sunlight spilled into the room through the curtains, a bit dazzling. Luo Yu pulled a few changes of clothes from the wardrobe and stuffed them into a bag. He had cleaned up everything on the second floor related to arcane magic or magic. He left no trace behind, so as to avoid anyone noticing anything amiss. This place is far enough. He glanced at the address Sona had given him. It was almost in the suburbs of Kuo town. It was quite close to Kuo Academy, much closer than where he currently lived. Unfortunately, he was just an ordinary human now, so he could only honestly take a taxi there. At the entrance of the villa, Sona froze for a moment when she saw him carrying a luggage bag. She had originally thought that when a guy went out, even if he had fewer things than a girl, at least his daily necessities and miscellaneous clothes would fill 1 or 2 suitcases. But it was just one bag. I don't need that many things. Luo Yu explained casually. I don't need to bring too many clothes either. When Kuo Academy starts, the school will issue uniforms. It's written in the contract that I must wear the school uniform. The agreement he signed yesterday stated in black and white that he had to enroll in Kuo Academy with Sona. Since uniforms were provided, why bring so many clothes? Luo Yu remembered very clearly that Kuo Academy would only start admitting male students next year. It should still be an all-girls school right now. But then he thought about it. The entire Kuo town was the territory of the Grimoire clan and the Citri clan, and the school board members were devils. Adjusting the enrollment plan in advance was really no big deal. Sona led him through the courtyard garden towards the 4-story villa. The building leaned towards a Nordic castle style and covered a shockingly large area. The villa was almost like an estate, with gardens in both the front and back, a swimming pool, and a horse racing track. Nothing was missing. The interior decoration followed a fresh and minimalist style, exuding an air of elegance. One look and you could tell it was the work of a master. The first floor was a spacious hall used for receiving guests and dining. The second to fourth floors were all rooms, which were likely prepared by Sona for her future servants. This is your room. If there's anything you're not satisfied with or if you have any requests, tell me directly, or you can ask the butler. Sona led him to the 4th floor and pushed open one of the doors. The facilities in the room were comparable to a presidential suite. It had a walk-in closet, a bathroom, and a shower, everything that should be there. As soon as Luo Yu entered, he noticed something wrong with the space. It was the same as the 2nd floor where he had undergone his dragon reincarnation. Mysterious means, either magic or arcane magic, had been used to expand the space. Ordinary people would at most think the room was ridiculously large and wouldn't feel anything unusual. Sorry for the trouble. If I have any needs, I will mention them to the butler. The butler was a white-haired old man who looked very kind. This old man was no ordinary person. He was an ultimate class devil, likely sent by the Citri clan specifically to protect Sona, the future clan head. There were also a dozen or so maids in the villa, who were also devils, with strengths ranging from low class to middle class, quite uneven. Brother, there are no surveillance magic circles installed in this room. It seems your fiancé trusts you quite a bit. Deirdre's voice rang out in the empty room. It's not trust in me, but trust in an ordinary human. The Citri clan must have checked my background long ago, so naturally, there's nothing to worry about. Luo Yu sat on the sofa and began to engrave Norse pantheon arcane magic circles. They were all auxiliary arrays for concealing his aura and sensing incoming people. Once these arrays were set up, he wouldn't have to worry about his cover being blown while cultivating. When it comes to doing this kind of sneaky work, the arcane magic of the Norse pantheon is the most proficient. After finishing the last array for gathering light elements, Luo Yu put his hands together and formed a hand seal. The arcane magic circle on the wall flashed with silver light, slowly melting into the space, and vanished completely. This was one of the characteristics of Norse arcane magic, it was hidden extremely deep. Sona gave a few instructions to her fiancé, then left the residence with her accompanying servants. Butler Izumi stood at the entrance, watching the figure of the second young lady disappear at the end of the street, his brows slightly furrowed. The second young lady is going out. I'm afraid it will be a few days before she returns. He turned around and walked into the house. A young servant beside him asked in a low voice, Butler Izumi, should we send people to follow and protect her? There is no need. Butler Izumi waved his hand, his tone calm. The second young lady's strength is there, and Kuo Town is a place jointly managed by our Citri clan and the Grimoire clan, so what big trouble could happen? At most, it would just be a few fallen angels hiding in the church causing trouble. After he finished speaking, he added, however, that young master-in-law, Luo Yu, must be served well, do not neglect him. The servant quickly nodded in agreement. In the bedroom, Luo Yu leaned against the window, a faint red light glowing on the back of his left hand. A deep voice came from his arm. Hey, partner, your little fiancé has gone out, aren't you going to follow and take a look? Luo Yu looked down at the boosted gear, his tone filled with a hint of disdain. Dreg, have you been too idle lately? You're talking more and more nonsense. He flexed his wrist, suppressing the red light slightly. Instead of wasting time gossiping, why don't you help me figure out how to raise the power of the Holy Light Dragon? You were one of the heavenly dragons back in the day, after all, who among the dragon race understands this better than you? The voice inside the gauntlet fell silent for 2 seconds, then took on a tone of pride. That is the truth. Dreg's tone became more serious. The Holy Light Dragon is a rare breed, there haven't been many of them since ancient times. Most of them reside in the 7th layer of heaven, where there is a mirror lake of light, a territory left behind by that old geezer. The light elemental energy in the mirror lake of light is terrifyingly dense, even light spirits are born from within it. The mirror lake of light is a sacred ground for the Holy Light Dragon to cultivate. To quickly reach the Mao class, its help is indispensable. The mirror lake of light. Luo Yu pondered for a moment, then shook his head with a wry smile. The last time I snuck into heaven and took a portion of the Holy Light Dragon's blood essence, it caused quite a stir, and heaven must have their eyes on me now. Besides, now, whether it's the underworld or the Norse pantheon, if I dare to show my face, they will definitely come to hunt me down without a second word. It's possible that old geezer in the underworld will also try to trip me up from behind. Back then, to obtain the position of Dragon Eater Samael Valley, and I took out quite a few of his reapers. The bounty the underworld has placed on me hasn't decreased at all in these past few years. Let him go head to head with a super devil level existence. He wasn't that foolish, his current strength was still far from enough. You don't need to worry about that. Dreg spoke up. As long as you appear in the form of a Holy Light Dragon and don't use the boosted gear, basically no one will be able to recognize you. In the eyes of a former heavenly dragon like me, once you transform, your original aura completely vanishes, leaving behind nothing but the purest of dragon auras. Luo Yu was stunned for a moment, he had almost forgotten about that. Through the dragon reincarnation technique, he was now a genuine pure-blooded dragon. He didn't need to pretend at all, as he was, in essence, a Holy Light Dragon. Now I just hope the passage to heaven hasn't been sealed off, and that those 4 seraphs haven't blocked it, otherwise it will take quite a bit more effort. Luo Yu had always been decisive. Since he felt that going to heaven to cultivate at the Mirror Lake of Light was feasible, he activated the teleportation magic circle without a second thought and left the villa directly. Throughout the entire process, he didn't alert anyone, not even the butler, whose strength was at the level of an ultimate class devil, noticed he had left. The pitch-black spatial passage was riddled with cracks, and the spatial force leaking from the fissures slashed around like knives, as if it wanted to tear any living creature that entered into shreds. Transformed into a Holy Light Dragon, Luo Yu was like the only point of light in the darkness, struggling to move forward against the violent spatial turbulence. This passage was a rift to heaven that he had secretly opened in Kuo Town back when he was trying to obtain the blood essence of a Holy Light Dragon. Since it was a secret, unofficial route, it was naturally not as spacious or stable as the proper channels to heaven. At this moment, he couldn't casually use the boosted gear, so he had to rely on his own Holy Light Dragon body to withstand the endless onslaught of spatial forces. His body was covered in bloody lacerations, dense and numerous. Fortunately, his Holy Light Dragon body held up, If it were any other race, even a top-tier devil would have been torn apart by those spatial forces. Luo Yu flapped his wings desperately, and after flying for another dozen minutes, a shimmering point of light finally appeared ahead. I've arrived. He immediately steadied his mind, hiding what needed to be hidden and retracting what needed to be retracted, but his nerves were pulled to their tightest. No one could say for sure what the situation was on the other side of the spatial passage. Perhaps those seraphs in heaven had been waiting for him, the exit filled with an army, just waiting for him to walk right into the trap like a turtle in a jar. If that were really the case, he would only be able to rely on the juggernaut drive to make a quick escape. Otherwise, it wouldn't just be heaven that would be hunting him down. Phew, no one. This smooth, crawling out of the passage, Luo Yu looked around. The scenery was as beautiful as a painting, even more exaggerated than a fairyland. The light elemental energy was so dense it had turned into clouds, high holy mountains pierced through the cloud layer, and a waterfall like a galaxy poured down from overhead, running through the entire heaven. The surroundings were empty, save for a small unicorn. The little thing glanced at him. Even though a bloody giant had suddenly appeared, it wasn't scared enough to run away and continued leisurely chewing on the white clouds formed by light elemental energy. Brother, beneath the sky waterfall is the mirror lake of light. It's not just the holy light dragons, most of the sacred beasts and divine beasts in all of heaven gather there. Dedrake's voice rang in his mind. Last time the two of them snuck into heaven, not long after exiting the spatial passage, they ran into a lone holy light dragon, which saved Luo Yu quite a bit of trouble. Let's go. Luo Yu spread his wings and flew off without any pretense. This was the seventh layer of heaven, the territory of light attribute divine beasts and sacred beasts. If he were sneaky or timid, it would only be easier to arouse the suspicion of passing angels. It truly lived up to being the divine realm. The light elemental energy was terrifyingly dense. When he obtained the holy light dragon's blood essence before, he hadn't felt it this clearly. Now, Luo Yu just took a few casual bites of the white clouds, and the rich light elemental energy flooded his entire body. The wounds on his body healed rapidly, and even his strength surged upward a little bit. He roughly calculated that the light elemental energy gathered by the light element gathering magic circle he drew in the villa, which he had spent half a month working on, was not even as much as what he got from just taking a few bites of the white clouds. It seems he would have to come to this place often from now on. The surface of the lake was as flat as a mirror, and the light elemental energy was ridiculously dense. Looking at the number of divine beasts and sacred beasts, Luo Yu landed in a relatively secluded corner by the lake. There were fewer divine beasts and sacred beasts here. The water surface of the mirror lake of light shimmered with fluorescence, and one couldn't see the end of it at a glance. The waterfall poured down from its source, yet one couldn't hear a single sound of water, and the flow pouring into the lake didn't stir up a single ripple. What Luo Yu cared about most was the number of divine beasts and sacred beasts in this place. It was ridiculously high. Although he didn't see many holy light dragons, other top-tier or even Mao-class divine beasts and sacred beasts were everywhere. If he hadn't happened to run into that lone holy light dragon back then, but had instead rushed straight to the mirror lake of light to snatch the blood essence, given the number and strength of these creatures, he probably wouldn't have been able to escape without using the juggernaut drive. On the shore of the mirror lake of light, a young holy light dragon was slowly refining the lake water it had just drunk. This lake water was the essence of light elemental energy purified repeatedly, and the light elemental energy it contained was terrifyingly high. Even for a holy light dragon, which had the highest affinity for light elemental energy, it would take a while to refine and fully absorb just one mouthful. For a sacred beast like a unicorn, whose affinity for light elemental energy was much lower than that of a holy light dragon, it would take almost an entire day to refine a single mouthful. While the young dragon was refining the lake water, it curiously stared at another holy light dragon not far to its left. That dragon was fully grown, and its aura was somewhat unfamiliar. It saw that it kept its head down, drinking the lake water frantically without stopping at all. It was as if the light elemental energy it drank could be absorbed directly. But how could that be possible? Even a Mao-class holy light dragon wouldn't be able to do such a thing. The young dragon muttered to itself, feeling that the other party must be deliberately putting on a show, wanting to attract the attention of other female dragons. How childish, How could those beautiful female dragons be attracted to such a pretentious, hypocritical guy who was just like a human? Luo Yu was drinking with gusto when he suddenly felt a strange gaze fixed on him. He glanced in the direction of the gaze. This young dragon looked a bit familiar. Right, remembered. Isn't this the one from which he forcibly extracted blood essence before? It recovered quite quickly. It seems the rich light elemental energy of heaven played a role, or perhaps it was simply the credit of this mirror lake of light. One must know that blood essence is the root of vitality for any life form. Even a dragon with vigorous blood energy would suffer a severe injury to its vitality if its blood essence were extracted. There are still quite a few dragons that haven't recovered after he extracted their blood essence. Instead, this young dragon recovered first. Forget it. Don't want to think about these useless things. Luo Yu buried his head again and continued to drink his lake water. Luo Yu gulped down the lake water, and the surging energy within his body was rapidly refined by the boosted gear, bit by bit merging into his limbs and bones. He clearly felt his strength climbing upward. It was approaching the threshold of the Mao class step by step. This feeling was simply incredibly satisfying. If he didn't have the gauntlet to help, relying only on himself to endure, he would at most be like that young holy light dragon. Drinking a few more mouthfuls would kill him, let alone absorbing it quickly. What level is Didrag? That is a former heavenly dragon. Under his control, the boosted gear could refine this bit of lake water without any effort at all. To put it bluntly, the refining speed Luo Yu was currently achieving with the help of the gauntlet had already reached the level of a heavenly dragon or a super devil. He let out a long breath. Half an hour later, Luo Yu stopped, no longer burying his head to drink frantically. If he kept drinking like this, sooner or later he would attract attention. He should know when to stop. The key was that the light elemental energy he had absorbed today had reached its limit, and his body was feeling a bit bloated. Continuing to absorb more would actually be bad. He calculated to himself, at this pace, if I cultivate for another month, breaking through to the Mao class will definitely be no problem. This place is truly a treasure, especially for light attribute creatures. Luo Yu was very clear about the gap between an ultimate class devil and the Mao class. Being able to reach the Mao class in a month, even he himself was a bit surprised by this progress. It seems he had underestimated the effect of the mirror lake of light on the holy light dragon. Of course, the credit of the boosted gear was also not small. If it hadn't helped refine the lake water, the time for him to break through to the Mao class would have at least been delayed by dozens of times. Buddy, it's time to go. In a little while, Gabriel will be coming down from the 8th layer to patrol heaven. Didrag reminded him. You look no different from a real holy light dragon right now, but you are, after all, a stranger who appeared out of nowhere, without a plausible reason. I'm afraid you'll cause trouble. Luo Yu nodded. His goal in heaven for today had been accomplished, and he didn't want to stay any longer to avoid complications. With a flap of his wings, Luo Yu left the mirror lake of light directly and flew toward the direction of the passage exit. Not long after he left, a female seraph with 6 pairs of golden wings spread behind her landed here. She scanned the area, confirmed that there was nothing unusual about the mirror lake of light, and then turned and flew elsewhere. To the west of Kuo town, deep in a dense forest, was hidden a dilapidated factory. It had been in disrepair for years, the red bricks were exposed, and the walls were covered in moss. The dense treetops blocked out the sunlight completely, and the surroundings exuded a chill. A dull thud exploded suddenly. A wall on one side of the factory collapsed suddenly. To be precise, something had forcibly smashed its way out from inside. Hee, exorcist. It was a giant spider with a woman's head. Its 8 legs braced against the ground as it wobbled to a standing position. Its entire body was covered in wounds, with green blood dripping down onto the grass, instantly corroding the turf into a pit. This was a stray devil, and its strength was already brushing against the threshold of a high-class devil. Clack, clack, clack. Footsteps emerged from the swirling dust. The spider woman shrank back in fear. Though she talked tough, her body trembled violently. The person who walked out was a young girl. She wore a black robe, had a pale, clean face, and eyes as cold as blades. She was tall with exceptionally long legs, and her black hair hung down to her ankles. She carried a long blade in her hand, looking sharp and efficient. Exorcist, Do you really have to drive me to extinction? The Spider-Woman's roar was shrill and grating, like someone scratching glass with their fingernails. Too much talk. The young girl lunged with her blade, striking directly at the Spider-Woman's vitals. The Spider-Woman scrambled to dodge. She wanted to stall for time, waiting for her wounds to heal a bit before fighting back. She knew that if she really forced a confrontation, she was no match for this exorcist. While spitting venom to block the girl's attacks, she looked around, searching for an escape route. But to be distracted when you're already outmatched is just suicide. PFF'd. The girl twisted her wrist, a flash of the blade striking precisely at the joints of the spider legs. She didn't leave a single one, all 8 legs were severed. Deprived of her legs, the Spider-Woman screamed as she crashed to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Now, she was completely immobilized. "Ah, you can't kill me, I worked so hard to get this far." The Spider-Woman howled and shivered, her eyes filled with terror as she watched the girl walk toward her, blade in hand. The girl didn't pay any heed to her nonsense. With a swift swing of her blade, the long sword pierced directly through the Spider-Woman's body. Clean and efficient. PFF'd. The girl pulled the blade from the dead Spider-Woman, not rushing to sheath it, and pointed the tip to the side. "Come out, devil." Sona stepped out from the shadows, pushed up the glasses on the bridge of her nose, and glanced at the corpse on the ground. "You've grown stronger again. You took down a peak middle-class devil using only physical techniques. If you used your boosted gear, fighting a high-class devil shouldn't be a problem." The girl raised her blade, her eyes as cold as ice. "I told you, stop following me. If you want to die, I don't mind sending you on your way." The long blade in her hand pointed directly at Sona, showing no intention of being lowered. If the other party dared to move, the blade would strike without hesitation. Even though she knew in her heart that the strength of the devil before her was not necessarily weaker than her own. "I am not your enemy, and you know I am not a stray devil, so there is no reason to kill me." "Do exorcists need a reason to kill devils?" The girl replied coldly, her tone devoid of any warmth. "For you, perhaps that is the case." Sona paused, then shifted the topic. "But for the Shinra clan behind you, it is different." "Shut up. Don't mention that family in front of me." The girl's wrist snapped, and a fierce blade aura slashed directly toward Sona. Sona sighed and tapped the air lightly with her hand. A water-like barrier instantly expanded, easily neutralizing the blade aura. Seeing her attack miss, the girl prepared to strike again. Sona clearly wasn't here to fight, and suddenly raised her voice. "Tsubaki Shinra, don't you want to know the whereabouts of that person?" This sentence was like hitting the brakes, instantly stopping the girl in her tracks. She stared at Sona, her eyes becoming serious. "You know where he is?" Sona shook her head, her tone frank. "I only know that you are looking for someone. But who that person is, or what his name is, I have no idea. Naturally, I don't know where he is either. You dare to toy with me?" Tsubaki Shinra's fair face flushed red instantly, her anger reaching its peak. She would not allow anyone to make jokes about him. She tightened her grip on the hilt, ready to strike at any moment. "Tsubaki Shinra, blind rage will not help you find him. It will only lead you down more detours." Only when mentioning that person was this woman willing to speak more. "HMPH, I don't need a devil to teach me how to behave." Tsubaki Shinra shot Sona a cold look, but ultimately sheathed her blade. "In your eyes, exorcists and devils are sworn enemies like water and fire. But you cannot deny that the devil's intelligence network is much stronger than you imagine. Not to mention things further away. Just here in the Far East, if my house Citri wants to investigate someone and obtain information about them, it would be effortless." Tsubaki Shinra remained silent, quietly waiting for Sona to continue. "The intelligence network of House Citri can be fully utilized to help you find the person you are looking for. We can even mobilize a portion of the underworld's power. In exchange, you must agree to become my servant." "Tsubaki Shinra, think it over clearly." Sona's gaze was earnest, staring straight at the woman opposite her. "Servant." Tsubaki Shinra's ears had grown calluses from hearing these 2 words recently. This wasn't the first time the devil before her had proposed this condition. But every time, she had refused without hesitation. She knew better than anyone what a devil's servant was. The spider woman she had just sliced in half had once been someone's servant, only to betray her master and become a wandering traitor. Furthermore, becoming a servant meant she would also become a devil. From then on, she would no longer be human. She didn't really have any attachment to her human identity. But her master was human. She didn't want to lose that status. Don't rush to refuse me. Sona saw her about to open her mouth and quickly interrupted. She could tell that Tsubaki's attitude was different today. At the very least, she was somewhat tempted, otherwise she wouldn't have let her talk to this point. If you become my servant, I will not force you to do anything you don't want to do. Our contract will be equal. Besides, that person you've been looking for must be quite powerful. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been searching for so long without finding him. There are only two types of people in this world who are the hardest to find. The first are those ordinary, unremarkable people. Toss them into a crowd and you can't fish them out. The world is full of such people. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. The second are true masters. Those powerhouses who have left legends in the world. Unless you exist on the same level, searching for them is a waste of effort. You won't even catch a glimpse of their shadows. Tsubaki closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her tone had become solemn. He is my master. My physical techniques, and the method of using my sacred gear, were all taught by him. A figure appeared in her mind. Standing above the heavens, clad in crimson, his pressure was overwhelming. With a gentle wave of his hand, he blocked the pursuers sent by the Shinra clan. From that day on, the Shinra clan never dared to send anyone to capture her again. Sona had long guessed this answer. She wasn't surprised at all. The human body has too little potential. The upper limit is insufficient. Compared to races like gods and devils, the gap is too large. You are currently at the peak of middle-class devil, and with your sacred gear, you aren't incapable of fighting a high-class devil. Although you haven't felt the bottleneck yet. But that day will come sooner or later. Tsubaki didn't speak. In truth, she was already stuck. She had been at the peak of middle-class devil for too long. There was no other way. She could only desperately hone her physical techniques, hoping to rely on that to increase her combat power. Only the strong can find the strong. Even if you find him for a moment, he will only glance at you and leave. By the side of the strong, the weak are destined to be left behind. Tsubaki's expression shifted abruptly. This sentence struck exactly at her most painful spot. Did Master leave her behind back then because she wasn't strong enough? This is the queen from the evil pieces. The evil pieces were created by Lord Beelzebub based on the chess from the real world, allowing other races to reincarnate as devils. As an exorcist, you should understand this. Sona walked up to Tsubaki Shinra and placed the queen piece into her hand. This time, Tsubaki Shinra did not dodge. In a room on the 4th floor of the villa, the aura of light elements was permeating everywhere. If not for the fact that Luo Yu had inscribed an arcane magic array in the room beforehand, he would likely have been exposed by now. Why was there so much light element aura leaking out? He could only blame himself for eating too much. This was unavoidable. It wasn't obvious in the heaven, where light elements were everywhere on the streets, but it was different in the human world. He was effectively a bright, shining lighthouse. This problem was neither huge nor small, but it had to be managed. Luo Yu sat on the sofa and inscribed a concealment arcane magic array on himself. The light element aura on his body was instantly hidden. Without the source, the light elements in the room slowly dissipated. Ddrag, is there any way to temporarily store the water from the mirror lake of light? For instance, storing it in the space created by the boosted gear. Getting his hands on the mirror lake of light meant having a great helper for increasing his strength. Naturally, Luo Yu had to think about how to utilize it safely in the long term. Running to heaven every day to mooch off the mirror lake of light for cultivation carried significant risks. If you walk along the river often, you're bound to get your shoes wet. Getting caught was only a matter of time. It was best to pave the way for a retreat now. Ddrag heard his host's question and spoke with a bit of helplessness. You really dare to think? Do you know that the mirror lake of light is one of the core light sources of heaven? If the mirror lake of light were so easy to steal, who knows how many people in the 3 realms would have already made a move. It wouldn't be your turn to borrow it for cultivation. No possibility at all. Luo Yu wouldn't give up. Heaven has long since made preparations against these light sources. Before the main god fell, restrictions were set. As soon as someone steals the mirror lake of light and brings it out of heaven, the heaven system left behind by the main god will immediately display the coordinates. Remember, this mechanism was set by the main god personally. Don't think about using any method to shield it. Unless you can reach the level of the main god. If I really had the abilities of the main god, why would I even need the mirror lake of light? After listening to Diedrich's words, Luo Yu gave up completely. If he tried to steal it by force, he could just wait for heaven to come and suppress him. The main god, the means left behind by the strongest deity in the three realms back then. There were too few people in the three realms today who could crack it, and besides, those people weren't ones he could hire. There was a knock on the door twice. Butler Izumi, with his full head of white hair, stood outside the door. Young master-in-law, dinner is prepared. Will you be eating in your room, or coming downstairs? Luo Yu opened the door. Please bring it up. Yes. Before long, the table was filled with dishes. Luo Yu glanced at them, nearly 20 dishes, all looking, smelling, and tasting perfect. He couldn't help but laugh. This treatment really was no different from being a kept man. Thinking about it carefully, ever since moving in here, everything he ate and used had been arranged by Sona. To put it bluntly, other than providing his presence, he hadn't contributed anything at all. But that was fine too. No matter how shrewd the people of the underworld are, they would never imagine he would hide in their own territory. The darkest place is under the lamp. Sometimes, it really is the safest way. After Butler Izumi withdrew, Luo Yu ate his meal alone. In the days that followed, he went to the heaven realm on time every day, soaking in the mirror lake of light to cultivate. The process was indeed tedious. But every time he refined the lake water and his strength surged up a notch, the sheer thrill of it made it impossible for him to stop. He had also figured out the patterns of the angels' patrols, trying his best to slip in during the gaps. He wasn't afraid of ordinary angels, it was mainly Gabriel. Running into her would be a huge trouble. Luo Yu calculated that the Holy Light Dragon's current combat power had already far surpassed an ultimate class devil. Although he hadn't officially stepped into the Mao class yet, a quasi-Mao class was definitely secure. If he persisted for another 10 days or so, he would be able to break through to the true Mao class. At that time, he planned to take a look deep inside the Mirror Lake. That place was the core of the Mirror Lake of Light, the source where light spirits were bred, and where divine and sacred beasts of the Super Devil King class gathered. As night fell, Luo Yu glanced out the window. These past few days, he had stayed indoors without even stepping out the door. All his meals were delivered by Butler Izumi. In the eyes of others, he was probably a textbook shut-in. Who would have thought that he was running back and forth between the heaven realm and the human world every day? I'll go out for some fresh air. He pushed open the window, and the night wind poured in. Luo Yu was used to being alone late at night, an old habit left over from his past life. Whenever he felt suffocated in his heart, he liked to find a place with no one around to stay for a while, just to change his mood. Tonight was no exception. He walked to the garden behind the villa, where the streetlights illuminated the entire area brightly. The flowers were in full bloom, a stream flowed gently along the stones, and some oddly shaped rockeries stood beside it. Combined together, it really had an indescribable charm. His whole body relaxed unconsciously, and much of his daytime irritation dissipated. Luo Yu. A female voice sounded from behind him, carrying a hint of surprise. Luo Yu turned his head. Sitting under the bamboo pavilion was Sona. She was wearing casual loungewear, a pair of glasses on the bridge of her nose, holding a book in her hands, reading by the light. An unfinished chess game was laid out on the small stone table in front of her. The dim yellow light silhouetted her profile. Sitting there so quietly, she inexplicably lent a touch of softness to the scene. Did I disturb you? Luo Yu walked to the edge of the pavilion. He had turned off his perception just now and hadn't noticed she was there. Looking at her, she had probably just returned not long ago. It's no trouble, Sona said, putting down the chess book in her hand, her tone apologetic. There have been too many things to deal with at home these past 2 days, so I couldn't look after you. The engagement between the two of them would expire in 3 years. But during these 3 years, she was still his fiancée in name, and they lived under the same roof. Although she had instructed butler Izumi to take good care of him, some things couldn't be resolved just by giving instructions. Luo Yu didn't think too much of it. He glanced at the chessboard on the table, then swept his eyes over the book in her hand, casually changing the subject. "Do you like playing chess?" Sona smiled and turned the book over to show him the cover. It was a collection of chess strategies. "To be precise, I prefer researching chess tactics," she said. The rules of the rating game themselves were a magnified version of chess. As the heir of House Citri, improving her ranking was a mandatory task. Studying chess tactics was also a compulsory course she had set for herself. Most of those pure-blooded devils in the underworld only cared about the strength of their peerage, and never took tactics seriously. Unless the opponent was too weak. Once the strengths of both sides were equal, tactics became the key to winning or losing. Luo Yu sat opposite her, tapping his finger on the chessboard on the table. Other people's tactics, strategies, layouts, and methods, no matter how good they might not necessarily suit you. Sona looked up at him. "A soft-hearted person cannot play a ruthless game," Luo Yu said. "Insisting on imitating others will only result in a poor imitation, losing your original flavor." He paused. "Playing chess is often about mindset and obsession. Other people's things can be used as a reference. But if you really want to make it your own, you might as well start from scratch and figure out a playstyle that belongs solely to you. When that day comes, you will naturally realize that the difference between the two is like night and day." "You are quite good at chess." Sona glanced at Luo Yu with slight surprise and casually closed the book. She wouldn't believe that someone who could say such things knew nothing about chess. She really hadn't expected that this fiancé of hers was actually a chess master. "Good at it." Luo Yu pondered for a moment, shook his head, and said, "The phrase, 'good at it,' is too heavy. At best, I'm just a chess player." Sona felt there was a deeper meaning in his words, but after careful consideration, she couldn't point out what was wrong. A chessboard. On a small scale, it was the piece of wood in front of her. On a large scale, the entire 3 realms was one. Those who could truly see through the chess game and perceive all changes. The deity who had already fallen counted as one, and Great Red, the true red dragon god emperor, counted as another. The 4 great Satans who perished together with God back then could count as one when combined. Shiva of the Hindu pantheon was barely qualified, while Indra of the East could only count as half. This was linked to strength, but more importantly, it was about one's realm. With different realms, one's vision was naturally different. Luo Yu knew very well that in these 3 realms, he was at most a chess player. And what he was playing was an endgame already set up by others, just like the game in front of Sona. He was still far from controlling the board and truly understanding chess. "Luo Yu, are you interested in playing a game with me?" When she was in the underworld, she had Rias to play chess with. Since coming to the human world, she had been busy dealing with peerage matters and hadn't had a proper game. She had flipped through several chess books, and her hands had long been itching. It is better to accept than to decline politely. After the chess pieces were set up, Luo Yu made a gesture of invitation. Sona played white and went first, starting with a very steady opening. The first move didn't show any particular pattern. The two of them made several moves in quick succession. Suddenly, a strange look flashed in Sona's eyes. Luo Yu made an unexpected move, pushing a piece forward by 1 square. Queen first. Sona was stunned. She hadn't expected Luo Yu to bring out his queen so early. Queen first, and the remaining pawns and knights will follow and charge forward. Just like a general leading the charge in battle, utilizing that unstoppable momentum, one can crush the enemy lines in one fell swoop. This is chess, not a battlefield. Sona felt Luo Yu was somewhat conflating concepts. Luo Yu casually replied, "Actually, some things are interconnected, even if it sounds like a fallacy. Besides, chess originally evolved from those things anyway." After a few minutes, the two had already traded over a dozen moves. The opening on the board gradually took shape. Sona used the king's pawn opening with the white pieces, which was the most common move that almost every beginner had played. But understanding this opening thoroughly was not that simple. Once it reached the middle game, every step required a massive amount of calculation. Luo Yu made a move. Sona's face changed on the spot. Philidor defense. With this move, Luo Yu's black piece formation was completely revealed. This was a common defensive system used against the king's pawn opening of the white pieces, famous for its stability, making it easy for the black pieces to secure a draw. Clearly, his previous moves didn't follow the pattern of the Philidor defense. How did it suddenly become one just with this single move? Sona couldn't figure it out no matter what. On the chessboard, if you can't see through your opponent's intentions, you can only be crushed step by step. Sona was in this exact situation. She thought Luo Yu was playing the Philidor defense and had already prepared her counter strategy. But then, Luo Yu shifted his formation. Sona failed to react in time and lost several pieces in a row. This was just the beginning, not even reaching the middle game yet. Sona had guessed before that Luo Yu's chess skills were not low, but she really hadn't expected them to be this high. She hurriedly tried to find a way to salvage the situation, but unfortunately, it was already too late. Luo Yu's overall layout had long been established. Clack. Luo Yu casually took her last knight. Even without finishing the game, the situation was already crystal clear. Sona's side had completely collapsed, leaving no hope of a comeback. Lost. Sona was somewhat dazed. She had never been defeated so miserably. From beginning to end, she had no room to fight back, being completely suppressed the entire time. Luo Yu made another move, putting her in checkmate directly. He picked up the black queen and said, "You have too many thoughts. Trying to protect your knight, you ended up losing your rook. Wanting to keep everything and unwilling to sacrifice anything is impossible. Trade-offs are very important. Although the queen is valuable, she is also the prime choice to be used as bait." Seeing that Sona was still in a daze, Luo Yu didn't say any more and stood up to leave. She needed some quiet time to herself now. After a long time, looking at the endgame before her, Sona let out a bitter laugh. To lose like this, even looking back now, I can't see the slightest possibility of winning. She looked up towards the fourth floor, in the direction of Luo Yu's room. Today, she suddenly realized that this fiancé of her was not as simple as the underworld and her family thought. How rare. You actually took the initiative to teach a devil, and a pure-blooded one at that. Just as Luo Yu stepped into his room, Deidrag's puzzled voice rang out in his mind. "Don't fool me with that fiancé nonsense. I don't believe you would go to this trouble just because of a title. Deidrag, you've been talking a lot lately. Let me make this clear first. I don't have that much prejudice against devils. I don't believe that either. Have there been few devils who died by your hand? Not counting stray ones, there are plenty of pure-blooded ones, and you've even slaughtered Mao descendants. No matter how I look at it, it seems like you have a blood feud with the underworld." Luo Yu was somewhat helpless. He really didn't have that much of a grudge against the devils of the underworld. It was all brought upon themselves by those blind pure-bloods. That Mao descendant was even stupider, wanting to take him in as a servant. He really thought too highly of himself. If he didn't kill that guy, he wouldn't be able to swallow this anger. Besides, quite a few fallen angels had died by his hand as well, so why focus only on devils? It made many people in the three realms, like Deidrag, genuinely believe he had an irreconcilable feud with the underworld. Teaching her can be considered compensation. Compensation for using her. Luo Yu brought the topic back to the main point. When you put it that way, I can understand. Although she came to your doorstep herself, if you are exposed, this little girl will definitely be implicated. After all, she is your fiancé in name, that much is obvious. Luo Yu nodded. For her, as the heir of House Citri, it would be easy to clear her name. Her biological older sister is even one of the 4 great Satans of the underworld. But there are some favors I don't want to owe. Whether she treats this as compensation or a favor, it has nothing to do with me. I just want peace of mind for myself. These words sounded quite selfish, only caring about his own comfort. But to Deidrag, this wasn't an issue at all. Dragons were naturally proud, free-spirited, and lived only to do as they pleased. Who cared about any rules? Selfish or otherwise, following instinct was the way to go. Otherwise, during the Great War back then, the 2 heavenly dragons wouldn't have charged straight into the battlefield. Now that Luo Yu had also become a dragon, some of his thoughts were gradually changing. In Sona's room. I lost, completely. Sona smiled bitterly at Rias Grimoire in the magic projection. Luo Yu, I'm actually a bit curious about him now. Rias Grimoire propped up her fair chin. She often played chess against Sona in the underworld, so she knew Sona's chess skills were already on par with the masters of the human world. To think this Luo Yu, Sona's fiancé, could completely crush her on the chessboard. One could only imagine how terrifying his skills were. The way Sona spoke of him made him sound quite impressive. It didn't sound like something an ordinary person could say. Yet the information provided by the underworld clearly stated that he was just an ordinary human with no sacred gear, no special bloodline, and had never even left Kuo town. How bizarre. Sona, how is your candidate for queen doing? Rias Grimoire was quite curious about Luo Yu. She would have to meet him in person to find out what kind of man he really was. However, compared to Luo Yu, she was more concerned about her best friend's choice of peerage members. The queen was the most important piece in evil pieces, second only to the king. She has already agreed. All that's left is the devil reincarnation. A smile appeared on Sona's face at the mention of Tsubaki Shinra. Although the girl had set quite a few conditions, which would seem utterly ridiculous to other pure-blooded devils. For instance, she could unilaterally terminate the contract and regain her freedom whenever she deemed it necessary. But then again, Sona was highly satisfied with Tsubaki Shinra's talent and strength. She was not inferior to Rias Grimoire's queen, Akeno Himehime, in the slightest. Then congratulations are in order, Sona. Thank you. In the underworld, at the Grimoire clan estate. Rias, who did you say Sona's fiancé was just now? A black-haired girl nearby furrowed her brows. Her features were exquisite, and her figure and appearance were on par with Rias Grimoire's. Her tone carried a hint of worry, yet also a faint trace of anticipation. I think he's called Luo Yu. Akeno, do you know him? Rias Grimoire looked at her queen in surprise. Akeno Himehime's reaction was much larger than expected. It really is him. Akeno Himehime trembled slightly and smiled bitterly. Well, the name Luo Yu isn't exactly common in Kuo town. You really know him? Yes, he was my childhood playmate, and my only friend. A playmate. Is he a resident of Kuo town? I recall you used to live there too. Akeno's childhood playmate is now Sona's fiancé. That is too much of a coincidence. It's simply unbelievable. Rias Grimoire's voice was filled with astonishment. Furthermore, she could tell that the relationship between Akeno and Sona's fiancé was definitely not as simple as mere childhood playmates. Otherwise, someone who usually hid her feelings so deeply wouldn't show such a complex, anxious expression of gain and loss. Akeno Himehime looked out the window. The sky of the underworld was a purplish red, with a violet moon hanging on the horizon. A coincidence, perhaps. In the end, you still couldn't escape this. What was the point of everything I did, then? Her vision blurred, and she seemed to see that boy from her childhood again. That thin, small boy had blocked her with his own body, forcing a smile as he told her not to be afraid, that he would protect her. Mother was gone. She didn't want to see that boy leave her too. Even if he had barely survived this time because that man arrived in time. But what about next time? And the time after that? The filthy blood flowing through her veins had only ever brought disaster to others. She didn't want to watch the boy die before her eyes just like her mother, while she could do nothing but scream until her throat went hoarse. So, she had abandoned that boy. Yet in the end, Akeno Himehime realized that their fates seemed to have been intertwined long ago, impossible to untangle. Now, I suppose we can only be considered the most familiar of strangers. She curled her lips, smiling self-deprecatingly. Rias Grimoire, seeing Akeno's expression, did not speak to disturb her. An ordinary human becoming the fiancé of House Citre's next head had completely shocked the entire underworld. The young generation of pure-blooded devils were all gnashing their teeth in jealousy. Rias Grimoire had already heard from Sona that Luo Yu, this seemingly ordinary fiancé, was incredibly good at chess, and had known her queen, Akeno Himehime, since childhood. Now, her curiosity about Luo Yu grew even stronger. After a moment, Akeno Himehime snapped out of her memories, a faint trace of sadness still hidden in her eyes. Akeno, if there's anything on your mind, just tell me. Not just you, but Kaneko and Yuto as well, you are not just my peerage, but my family. Rias Grimori tried to comfort her. Don't worry, Rias. Akeno Himehime forced a smile and said, I'm fine. I just felt a bit sad remembering the past. By the way, Rias, when are we going to the human world? Rias Grimori noticed the anticipation on Akeno's face that she couldn't hide, and perhaps wasn't even aware of herself. Sighing inwardly, she said, In 3 days. In 3 days. Akeno Himehime was stunned for a moment and asked, Rias, did Lady Venelana Grimori agree? Rias Grimori's mother, Venelana Grimori, had always been reluctant to let her daughter go to the human world for training. After all, Rias Grimori's motives for going to the human world were less than pure. She was running away to avoid her engagement. How could mother agree so easily? I was planning to spend a month convincing her. But something happened recently with the Bale clan, so mother has to return to the Bale clan the day after tomorrow. Rias, you're planning to sneak away. Akeno Himehime's eyes widened. Sneaking away is for fools. I've already informed father and brother. Rias Grimori smiled slyly. If that's not sneaking away, then what is? Akeno Himehime sighed, then asked, Rias, what happened to the Bale clan that even Lady Venelana Grimori had to rush back? The Bale clan ranked first among the 72 pillars, and their status in the underworld was only slightly below that of the 4 devil kings. Akeno couldn't fathom what kind of major trouble such a great clan could face that would require Rias Grimori's mother, who had married out long ago, to personally return. The 4 great emperors. Akeno, you must have heard of this title before. Rias Grimori brushed her red hair from her forehead, her tone carrying a rare heaviness. They are the owners of those 4 sacred gears, recognized by all pantheons in the 3 realms as troublemakers. Akeno Himehime was certainly no stranger to the title of the 4 great emperors. They were on a completely different level compared to the young generation's 4 kings in the underworld, like Rias. Those 4 were the ceiling of combat power among the younger generation in the 3 realms, completely overshadowing the geniuses of their peer group. They roamed the world, stirring up trouble everywhere and instigating countless battles. None of the pantheons could do anything about them. They were truly the number 1 problem children of the 3 realms. In the past, having just one such formidable figure in an era would be considered a miracle. But now, 4 had appeared all at once, which was practically enough to tear the heavens apart. Actually, what's truly terrifying isn't the sacred gears themselves. Those artifacts were originally just things left behind by God to protect humanity. Rias Grimori paused, her eyes darkening. What's terrifying are the 4 great emperors. They have developed their respective sacred gears to the absolute limit, with almost every one of them considered the strongest possessor in history. Only in their hands do the sacred gears truly live up to their name, capable of slaying devil kings and gods. Saying this, a trace of helplessness appeared on the face of the usually confident Rias Grimori. Living in the same era as these monsters brought a despairing amount of pressure. Although the 4 of them were wanted by numerous pantheons, this in itself indirectly proved their strength. A useless person wouldn't have the qualifications to make so many pantheons mobilize. A few days ago, while you were in seclusion trying to break through to a high-class devil, Akeno, the White Dragon Emperor of the 4 great emperors, broke directly into the Bale clan's territory. Right in front of a crowd of Bale clan elders, he killed their successor and severely injured the current head. By the time the Devil King rushed over, he had already torn open space and fled. Akeno Himehime's pupils shrank sharply. The White Dragon Emperor was incredibly audacious. To kill the successor and heavily injure the head right in their own nest, in front of a crowd of high-ranking members. This was no longer just a provocation, it was practically a slap in the face to the entire underworld. After all, in many aspects, the Bale clan represented the face of the underworld's devils. It was indeed not surprising that Lady Venelana Grimori had suddenly rushed back to the Bale clan. After all, she was the elder sister of the Bale clan's current head, and the successor was her nephew. With such a huge crisis happening in her maiden home, it made sense for her to return and offer support. Why did the White Dragon Emperor target the Bale clan? If he didn't have a purpose, it made absolutely no sense to risk being hunted down by the entire underworld just to forcefully attack the Bale clan. The White Dragon Emperor is one of the 4 great emperors, not some brainless brute. How could someone who reached that position do something without a profitable return? I don't know the exact reason either. There are rumors that it's related to when he and the other 3 stormed the Netherworld back then. My cousin probably took something he shouldn't have from there, which is why someone came directly to his door and slaughtered him. Rias Grimoire spoke very casually, clearly having no affection whatsoever for that cousin of hers. In her eyes, he was nothing more than a fool who liked to show off his talent everywhere. But then again, dying at the hands of the White Dragon Emperor is better than being dragged down from the position of successor by Saraorg Bale. If he had really ended up like that, he would have completely lost face in the underworld and would have had to leave in shame. The devils of the underworld had never been kind or gentle. The struggles among those pure-blooded nobles had always been life or death. The fate of the losers was far worse than death. Since the Great War ended, the underworld had been severely weakened, and a vast number of pure-blooded devils had died, causing their numbers to plummet. Only then did such struggles become less obvious. But this didn't mean it had truly disappeared. I have to work harder. Rias Grimoire silently clenched her fists in her heart. The White Dragon Emperor's sudden move this time was equivalent to a harsh wake-up call to the young generation of the underworld. Compared to the 4 great emperors, they, the younger generation, were still far too lacking. Those people were already walking tall across the 3 realms. As for them, except for Saraorg Bale, the leader of the young generation's 4 kings, whether the remaining few could even protect themselves in the 3 realms was a question. Not to mention anything else. 2 more days passed after that late-night chess game with Sona. Other than Sona coming to play chess with him every now and then, nothing much happened over these 2 days. His cultivation at the Mirror Lake of Light in Heaven had been progressing smoothly. Before heading out today, Luo Yu made sure to let Sona know that he was going out and would only return in the evening. The Mirror Lake of Light had already pushed his strength to the absolute peak of his current realm, and he could no longer advance any further. Next, there was only one path left, breaking through to the Devil King level. This speed was much faster than Luo Yu had initially anticipated. He had originally thought it would take nearly a month, but now, all things considered, it had only taken 10 days. For divine and sacred beasts of the light attribute, the cultivation effects of the Mirror Lake of Light were truly unparalleled. Luo Yu transformed into the Holy Light Dragon as usual, spread his wings, flew over, and landed at a spot by the lake where there were few beastly figures. He had been exceptionally careful over the past 10 days. Every time he came to drink the lake water, he chose a different spot, fearing that some blind fool might notice his unfamiliar face. Before this, the young Holy Light Dragon from whom he had drawn blood essence had watched him curiously for 2 days. Later, probably finding it boring, it had gone off to sleep somewhere. Dragons, after all, loved nothing but wealth and sleep. The Holy Light Dragon was no exception. If they could grow stronger just by sleeping, who would bother to cultivate? Every race causes quite a stir when they try to break through to the Mao class, Diedrag's voice sounded. Once this level is broken through, the gap between the strong and the weak widens. Luo Yu frowned. Then what should I do? If I break through outside, the light elements won't be enough, and I'll definitely fail. The key was that there was no way to conceal it. If he tried to break through to the Mao class right there, Gabriel and those seraphim would definitely notice. Dive as deep as you can into the Mirror Lake of Light, Diedrag said. The filtering effect of the lake water can suppress the breakthrough fluctuations to a negligible level, making it virtually undetectable to others. Luo Yu seized a moment when no beasts were watching and plunged headfirst into the lake. The lake water instantly enveloped his dragon body, and the violent light elements slapped against him like a tide, frantically boring into his body. I have to hurry. If I stay in the lake too long, even if I don't actively absorb them, these deadly light elements will blow me apart. He had to continue diving. The current depth was too shallow to block the fluctuations of breaking through to the Mao class. 1 meter, 2 meters, 10 meters, 20 meters. Diving to a depth of 20 meters, Luo Yu could no longer hold on. The light elements below were several times denser than above. With almost every meter deeper, the concentration increased by 10 to 20%. His body simply couldn't withstand it. Once he broke through to the Mao class, perhaps he could try. Inside the boosted gear, Diedrich casually glanced deeper, lost in thought. Begin. Luo Yu calmed his mind, circulating the holy power through his dragon body, carefully absorbing the light elements and converting them into his own strength bit by bit. In no time at all, Luo Yu's dragon body was completely saturated, unable to hold even a shred more of holy energy. Normally, someone at this point would choose to directly charge at the bottleneck, taking the opportunity to break through to the Mao class. But Luo Yu didn't think that way. To waste such a pure light element environment would be truly foolish. He began to repeatedly compress the holy power within his body, refining it over and over, letting this force wash back and forth through his dragon body, strengthening his flesh and bones inch by inch. Half an hour passed. The quality of Luo Yu's holy power was a full 30% higher than before, and his physical strength had doubled. This was already the physical limit of the holy light dragon, with absolutely no room left for improvement. Break. He suddenly mobilized all his holy power and slammed it fiercely against the barrier within his body. Crack. It sounded as if something had shattered, the noise echoing from deep within Luo Yu's body. It wasn't over yet. He continued to urge his power, expanding along the cracks. Crack, crack. The sounds became more frequent and louder. Bang. With a muffled bang, the bottleneck completely exploded. Luo Yu's body instantly underwent an earth-shattering change, expanding frantically. His dragon body, which was originally only a dozen zhong long, instantly stretched to over 20 zhong, and it was still growing, with absolutely no sign of stopping. As his size grew, his aura also surged crazily. A terrifying pressure spread in all directions. Fortunately, this area was isolated by the lake water, otherwise such a huge commotion would have attracted the angels long ago. Luo Yu opened his massive mouth and desperately swallowed the lake water. The terrifyingly dense light elements in the lake water were all absorbed by him, converting into holy power and refilling his empty body. Now that he had broken through to the Mao class, the amount of holy power he could accommodate was dozens of times stronger than before. He swallowed for nearly 10 minutes before he was completely filled, and his dragon body expanded to its limit, over 30 zhong long. He looked like a monster that could blot out the sky. Luo Yu felt the power in his body. My current strength is no weaker than when I activated the boosted gear before. A dragon is a dragon after all. Even at the same Mao class, his strength was several times that of other races. Although he had just stepped into the Mao class, if he went up against those Mao class devils, he was confident he could face them head on, relying solely on his dragon body. With full power, he wouldn't lose to a devil at the peak of the Mao class. This was a ridiculously exaggerated enhancement. Coupled with the balance breaker of the boosted gear, killing some Super Devil King class enemies wouldn't be a problem either. As for Super Devils, if he used Juggernaut Drive, trading a few blows should be no problem. A golden brand suddenly appeared on his dragon claw, frantically devouring the surrounding light elements. Luo Yu was stunned, and his claw subconsciously retracted. This is the aura of the holy sword. No, it's a holy sword fragment, and it has that person's scent. Diedrich's voice exploded in his mind, carrying obvious unease. Leave quickly, don't stay in heaven for another second. Those angel guys are incredibly sensitive to this thing. Luo Yu knew what was going on, and he had no time to ponder how the holy sword fragment had ended up on him. He charged straight out of the mirror lake of light and rushed toward the spatial channel. His body of over 20 zhong burst out of the water, making an astonishing commotion. The surrounding divine beasts and sacred beasts all looked up. But Luo Yu couldn't care about that. The most critical thing now was to leave heaven. If he attracted the 4 seraphim, he would be in big trouble. Not to mention, in a place like heaven, who knew if there were still traps left behind by the Creator God. A few minutes later, several 5-winged angels arrived at the scene, their faces tense as they vigilantly scanned the surroundings. They had clearly sensed the aura of that fallen one just now. That person died long ago, no need to be nervous. The one who came should be his descendant. A holy figure slowly descended. It was none other than the Archangel Raphael. Last time it was the Red Dragon Emperor, and this time it's the descendant of that fallen one. There must be another channel in the 7th layer that we haven't discovered yet. Seal them all off. Yes, the 5-winged angels immediately went into action, dispersing to search every corner. Raphael carefully inspected the mirror lake of light. After confirming there was nothing unusual, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He turned and returned to the 8th layer. By the time Luo Yu returned from heaven to the human world, it was already late at night. It was much later than expected. To be safe, he directly activated the balance breaker of the boosted gear while inside the spatial channel, blowing the entire channel to pieces. Otherwise, if heaven traced it to Kuo Town, it would be no laughing matter. While destroying the channel, he also intercepted the coordinates inside. After breaking through to the Mao class, the mirror lake of light's assistance to his cultivation hadn't decreased at all. After catching a glimpse of the terrifyingly dense light elements at the bottom of the lake today, it was even more impossible for Luo Yu to give up. Now that he had the spatial coordinates of heaven in hand, as long as he spent some effort to find a loophole in the defense mechanism, he could open up a safe channel again. Furthermore, with his current strength, opening it up would be much easier than before. Sorry, I got delayed by some matters and made you wait so long. Just as Luo Yu stepped through the villa's front door, he saw Sona standing in the living room, her face showing obvious anxiety. She had been waiting for him. As long as you're okay. Seeing him return safely, Sona finally felt the weight lift from her chest. Just now, she was truly afraid that Luo Yu had been captured by those fallen angels in the church, or harmed by that stray devil, and had almost sent Butler Izumi out to search for him. Next time, you. She wanted to give him a few words of caution, but the words caught in her throat. What's wrong? It's nothing. Sona shook her head. Luo Yu was just an ordinary human with limited knowledge of this world. He had no idea how many devils, fallen angels, and other terrifying races were hiding in the shadows of Kuo Town, ready to strike at humans at any moment. Not to mention the relationship between the two of them. On the surface, they were fiancé and fiancée, but in reality, it was nothing more than a paper agreement. If you encounter a situation like today's again, remember to call Butler Izumi. Sona gave one last reminder. Luo Yu nodded. Today was indeed special. He was eager to return to his room to sort through the information he had obtained today, especially the holy sword fragment that had suddenly appeared in his body. That was what truly mattered. Sona watched Luo Yu go upstairs, pondering whether she should secretly arrange a servant to act as his bodyguard. Otherwise, if something really happened to Luo Yu, the fact that her contract couldn't be dissolved would be a minor issue. If those pure-blooded devil nobles in the underworld found out that the Citri clan couldn't even protect the person contracted to their future head, it would completely disgrace the clan. This would directly affect the Citri clan's position in the underworld. As the heir, she had to consider these things. Second young lady. Butler Izumi spread his devil wings and landed in front of Sona, the blue teleportation sigil unique to the Citri clan appearing beneath his feet. Thank you for your hard work, Butler Izumi. Second young lady, this is what this old servant should do. However, Butler Izumi hesitated, his cloudy old eyes glancing toward the 4th floor. What is it? Second young lady, this old servant searched the entire Kuo town just now, but could not sense the young master's aura. It wasn't until he was almost back here that I sensed him again. Sona frowned and fell silent. Did Luo Yu happen to evade Butler Izumi's perception, or was he not in Kuo Town at all and then suddenly appeared? Although Kuo Town was called a town in name, its area was not small. If Luo Yu had left using human transportation, Butler Izumi wouldn't have specifically brought it up. Perhaps that person left behind some means that allows his descendant to employ certain mysterious powers. Sona speculated in a low voice. Luo Yu slowly deactivated the concealing arcane magic on his right hand. A dazzling and scorching aura suddenly erupted. The light carried an intense sense of holiness, yet it also had an indescribable sharpness, pricking the skin like a knife. This holy power was completely different from the one within Luo Yu's own body. It was so clean that it could cleanse all impurities, yet it was laced with a trace of killing intent. Luo Yu looked down at the back of his hand, where there was a golden sword-shaped mark. Less than an inch long, it was embedded right in the center of the back of his hand. This was something that had suddenly emerged when he broke through to the Mao class. Diedrag said that this was a holy sword fragment. Fallen one, though those in heaven prefer to call them the fallen. Diedrag's voice echoed in his mind, his tone highly complex. Partner, Didn't you ask me before if I remembered any human powerhouses who stood on the side of the devils during the Great War? Luo Yu remained silent, quietly waiting for him to continue. Thinking back carefully now, there indeed was such a person. Diedrag paused. The first-generation saint sword wielder, the holder of the primordial saint sword. He was the sinner who swung his sword at God, the one the church and heaven have always cursed, the fallen one. Luo Yu felt a sudden jolt in his heart. Swinging a sword at God. For a holy sword wielder to do such a thing was practically the ultimate rebellion against the world. That wasn't just a matter of courage, but of absolute strength. After all, God was an existence far transcending even a super devil. I never imagined my ancestor had such a massive background. Luo Yu felt a bit strange inside. It wasn't pride, nor was it anything else. Either way, the word, traitor, sounded incredibly grating. The first-generation saint sword wielder, a traitor to heaven and the church. Diedrag immediately corrected him. He was the fallen one who swung his sword at God. I never said he was a traitor. Luo Yu was stunned for a moment. A holy sword wielder attacking God, standing on the side of the devils, and opposing God, wasn't that betrayal? As if seeing through the doubt in his mind, Diedrag continued to explain, the title of Fallen One was just a label forced onto him by those angels in heaven. During the Great War, the primordial saint sword didn't belong to heaven or the church at all. It had been wandering the human world, and your ancestor was the first to use it to its absolute limit. He was never under the control of heaven or the church to begin with. Luo Yu didn't expect such inside information. He had always assumed the holy swords belonged to heaven and the church from the very start. As for why his ancestor chose to stand with the devils, it was no longer important, nor could it be investigated. This holy sword fragment inside me must have been left behind after the primordial saint sword shattered, right? Luo Yu was currently more concerned with his own situation. That should be correct. Diedrag said. After your ancestor fell, the primordial saint sword shattered as well. A portion was taken by the church and forged into their exclusive 7 holy swords. Another portion fell into the hands of others, who also used alchemy to forge several holy swords. Your ancestor was the first-generation holy sword wielder, and it makes sense that he passed the holy sword fragment down to his descendants through his bloodline before he died. Looking at it now, it only needed you to break through to the Mao class to activate it. Thinking about it this way, many things suddenly became clear to Luo Yu. For example, the marriage arrangement between him and Sona. That contract was fundamentally signed using the holy sword fragment as a medium. Otherwise, relying solely on bloodline power, how could it have persisted for thousands of years without being broken? Sitting on the sofa, Luo Yu began to slowly mobilize the holy sword fragment in his right hand. His method was similar to guiding a sacred gear, which was not difficult for him. Before long, a holy sword took shape. To be precise, it was a hilt. The black gold hilt was slightly thicker than usual. It was carved with patterns of the sun, moon, and stars, appearing entirely natural. It exuded a noble and holy aura, with a hint of the bottomless depth of the cosmos. The blade is completely broken, only the hilt is still somewhat intact. Luo Yu could see clearly that only less than half an inch of golden blade remained on the hilt, with a perfectly clean break. If I had obtained this before the boosted gear awakened, it would have been a decent help. But now, frankly, it's rather useless. He weighed the hilt in his hand, feeling a bit disappointed and frustrated. If I used alchemy to forge a holy sword, it might be fine. But alchemy is simply not my strength. The first holy sword was, after all, the ancestor of all holy swords in the 3 realms. If this hilt fell into the hands of a master of alchemy, the holy sword forged from it would definitely stand at the absolute pinnacle of all holy swords. Luo Yu didn't believe that the item his ancestor, the first-generation saint sword wielder, left for his descendants before dying could be anything ordinary. Besides, this was the medium for the Citri clan's contract. This hilt was definitely the most core part of the entire first holy sword. Partner, I have a good idea, depending on whether you're willing to part with this hilt. While Luo Yu was still hesitating, Diedrag suddenly spoke up. To the church, this hilt of the first holy sword is an extraordinary holy sword. But to me, it's only a matter of whether it's useful or not. There's nothing to be unwilling to part with. Since Luo Yu spoke so decisively, Diedrich stopped beating around the bush. Fuse it into the boosted gear. I can't say how much of a boost it will give, but two things are certain. First, you'll get a decent weapon, which is much better than being empty-handed. Second, you are already a holy light dragon, and the power in your body is entirely holy power. With the enhancement of this holy sword fragment, your power will be more compatible with the boosted gear, which will also be of great benefit to developing your Aurora Juggernaut drive form next. Luo Yu said with certainty, never mind two, getting even one is a win. The boost the holy sword fragment gave to his Aurora Juggernaut drive form far exceeded what he had initially thought. Being able to easily obtain a handy weapon on top of that was just a bonus, filling his shortcoming of lacking a weapon. He raised his hand and formed a hand seal, reinforcing another layer of arcane magic barrier on the walls of the room while also setting up a boundary to prevent the noise from being too loud later. Boosted gear. Luo Yu gave a low shout, and a red light burst from his left arm. A completely crimson gauntlet covered his entire forearm, its sharp claws cold and gleaming, with a fist-sized emerald jewel embedded on the back. The entire gauntlet looked packed with explosive power, its deterrence maximized. Crimson Emperor Flame. A cluster of crimson flames suddenly flared up in his palm. The scorching temperature felt as though it could melt steel, and heatwaves rolled in all directions. If he hadn't set up the boundary beforehand and deliberately compressed the flames within a controllable range, this villa would probably have been burned to ashes long ago. This flame was the innate life flame of one of the two heavenly dragons, Diedrich Gok, which had been sealed by God. It was known as the ultimate flame capable of burning all things. Once touched, it could never be extinguished, capable of burning even gods to ash. After Luo Yu developed the gauntlet to near its limit, as Diedrich reclaimed his name, this ultimate flame was also unsealed. Originally, this flame was called the Blazing Inferno Flame, but Luo Yu found it too long and awkward, so he directly changed it to Crimson Emperor Flame, which sounded clean and crisp. Diedrich didn't object either, probably thinking the name he originally came up with was too ugly as well. The hilt of the first holy sword was enveloped by the Crimson Emperor Flame. For a flame that could burn even gods to ashes, melting a hilt was naturally child's play. Luo Yu continuously increased the intensity of the fire, and the dark gold surface of the hilt softened bit by bit. 10 minutes later, the hilt completely vanished, leaving only a puddle of dark gold liquid. From then on, all traces of the remaining hilt of the first holy sword completely disappeared from the three realms. Luo Yu did not immediately fuse it into the boosted gear. This was a habit he had formed, just like when he broke through to the Mao class at the Mirror Lake of Light today. He liked to choose a suitable environment to first purify things, whether himself or external objects, squeezing out all impurities to raise their quality by another level. The liquid formed from the hilt of the first holy sword originally had negligibly few impurities, almost zero. Even the top alchemists would not be able to find any flaws. But in front of the Crimson Emperor Flame, an ultimate flame that even gods feared, no matter how few impurities there were, they would be completely purged. The Crimson Emperor Flame continued to burn, and the impurities dispersed as wisps of black smoke. I'll leave the rest to you, Diedrich. Luo Yu withdrew the flame and grabbed the dark gold liquid with the boosted gear. The liquid quickly seeped into the interior of the gauntlet. Without wasting words, Diedrich immediately got to work. It was going to completely fuse this material into the boosted gear, reshaping it into a form more suitable for Luo Yu. The holy power inside Luo Yu's body began to rapidly deplete. This was with his tacit permission. Diedrich was borrowing his power to complete the modification. 10 minutes passed. Over half of his holy power had already been consumed. Luo Yu could clearly feel that changes were taking place inside the gauntlet, becoming more and more integrated with him, just as Diedrich had said. All of the original slight sluggishness had completely vanished at this moment. His holy power flowed through the gauntlet as smoothly as if it were a part of his own body. Another 10 minutes passed. The external appearance of the boosted gear had also changed. The originally completely crimson gauntlet was now covered with a layer of dark gold luster, looking more heavy and profound. Several dark gold patterns had appeared next to the emerald jewel, intertwining with one another. He could faintly feel that these patterns seemed to have a special purpose. It's done, partner. I need to sleep for a few days. Diedrich's voice came through, sounding clearly exhausted. Get some good rest, Dedrag. Luo Yu comforted him. Then, staring at the brand new boosted gear, his heart itched with the desire to test just how fierce this thing was now. The starry sky was brilliant, and the moonlight was enchanting. In the bamboo pavilion of the garden, Sona was staring blankly at an unfinished chess game. Strictly speaking, this game was the one she had lost to Luo Yu yesterday. No. If the knight retreats and then the pawn is pushed forward, both the bishop and queen on the right will be in danger. Sona frowned, playing it out repeatedly. By the 11th turn, Luo Yu's rook was already lying in ambush, waiting for me to jump in. Unless I had seen through his plan by the 7th or 8th turn, one wrong move led to another, and I fell completely into the pit he dug. The more she pondered it, the more hopeless she felt. The gap in chess skills between her and Luo Yu was not just a little bit. Sona looked up at the moon and softly muttered, "Is it because our experiences are different?" These were Luo Yu's words. Seeing more and thinking more naturally led to knowing more. Sona stared blankly at the chessboard, lost in thought. Once you figure some things out, the path becomes smooth. She murmured softly, as if speaking to herself. Playing chess is just like living life. No regrets once a move is made, knowing when to advance or retreat, when to keep or let go, it's all a reflection of one's character. How much hardship a person has suffered, how many things they have carried, is all displayed clearly on the chessboard. These words really don't sound like something someone your age would say. Sona looked up, gazing at the empty seat opposite her. She didn't know what Luo Yu had actually gone through to develop such an unfathomable personality. She reached out, preparing to pack away the chessboard. But the moment her fingertips touched a chess piece, her expression suddenly changed. A wave of burning heat came from her forehead. She raised her hand to touch it, her fingertips meeting a raised pattern, like something surging beneath her skin, interlocking with each other to form a complete chain. The contract, why did it appear on its own? Sona waved her hand abruptly, a ripple spreading through the air as a magic water mirror emerged. Her face was reflected in the mirror. The golden pattern on her forehead was clearly visible, wrapping around in circles like a brand carved into her very bones. This was the contract chain. Something carved onto her body the day she was born, it was the agreement signed between that person and the Citri clan. Her lifelong destiny was nailed down from that very moment. But this chain was usually hidden, never appearing on its own. What was going on today? Sona raised her finger and gently poked the chain. The instant her fingertip touched the pattern. Crack. A faint sound of cracking. The chain snapped from the middle, shattering into countless points of light, like ashes scattered by the wind, slowly dissipating into the air. It's broken. Sona froze in place. She couldn't believe it, and raised her hand again to touch her forehead. The skin was smooth, with nothing there. The thing that had weighed on her since birth was just gone like that. There was no backlash, no excruciating pain, completely clean. A sense of relief she had never experienced before welled up from the depths of her soul, as if a boulder that had pressed down on her for over a decade had been suddenly lifted. She took a deep breath, her chest filling with an unprecedented feeling of comfort. This time, it was truly broken. It wasn't their house Citri unilaterally tearing up the contract, the other party had let go voluntarily. But before she could even celebrate, her forehead burned once again. A speck of ink spread between her brows and immediately condensed. Sona's pupils shrank violently. A new dark gold chain instantly formed on her forehead. It was thicker, denser, and had deeper patterns than the previous one. The end of the chain extended outward and disappeared into the void, as if connected to another person's soul. A new contract. How is that possible? A massive flood of information suddenly rushed into her mind. The nature, terms, and binding power of this chain were all engraved in her consciousness. It was still the engagement with Luo Yu. But this time, the binding power was more than 10 times stronger than before. In the past, she could still exploit loopholes like cohabiting for 3 years to avoid fulfilling obligations, to dodge it, but now, all loopholes were completely sealed. Certain obligations that a fiancé must fulfill, she had to complete unilaterally. If she failed to do so, she would suffer the backlash of the contract. What made her scalp tingle the most was offspring. Although the previous contract had mentioned it, it wasn't mandatory, she could delay and avoid it. But this new chain wrote it clearly. She must bear offspring for Luo Yu. This was an ironclad rule with no room for negotiation. Did Luo Yu do something, or did that person leave a backup plan back then? Sona clenched her teeth, forcing herself to calm down. But her body was trembling. Her shoulders shook, her fingers clenched until they turned white, and even her breathing fell out of rhythm. The sudden change in the contract must have been triggered by something. Even if Luo Yu did have some special abilities, it was absolutely impossible for him to affect the binding power of the contract itself. If it were really that easy to alter, the Citri clan wouldn't have waited until today to obediently send their new head over to fulfill the contract. It wouldn't be surprising for someone who could fight against God to leave a backup plan. It was probably to prevent someone like her, who wanted to exploit contract loopholes and bypass the restrictions to break the agreement in one go. Could it be that I, Sona Citri, can only live my life with my neck chained, without even the room to resist? Sona held her forehead, her voice laced with an unspeakable despair. The spatial rift connecting the underworld to the human world was a chaotic mess of colors, with violent spatial turbulence surging everywhere. The spacious and stable passage was precisely the main route opened by the underworld. It was on a completely different level compared to the crude little path Luo Yu had sneakily put together. At this moment, a deep and long train whistle echoed from the depths of the spatial passage. A train bearing the crest of the Grimoire clan was speeding along, heading straight for the human world. In the luxurious carriage, Rias Grimoire and her 3 peerage members were present: the queen, Akino Himahima, the rook, Kaneko Tuju, and the knight, Kiba Yuto. Standing nearby were several devil maids of the Grimoire clan, responsible for serving them. However, these maids were all shaking so hard that they couldn't even hold the black tea steady, as if they were being heavily suppressed by something. The scalding hot tea had just been poured into the cups when it instantly turned into ice water emitting white vapor. Lord Seraphal. Rias Grimoire had a helpless expression as she looked at the twin-tailed woman not far away, who was radiating a freezing chill. This woman was dressed like a magical girl, yet cold air was pouring out of her entire body, making her the source of all this. One of the current 4 great Satans of the underworld, Seraphal Leviathan. Anyone with eyes could see that this Mao was currently in an extremely terrible mood. Raging fire burned in her eyes, ready to explode at anyone who touched her. You all may leave first. As soon as Rias Grimoire spoke, the maids who were being tormented to death by Seraphal's aura felt like they had been granted a second life, and quickly retreated from this terrifying carriage. Sorry, little Rias. Once the maids left, Seraphal also realized she had lost her composure just now and calmed her emotions slightly. Seeing that the icy and tense atmosphere had finally eased a bit, Akino Himahima and the other 2 also breathed a sigh of relief. It's nothing. Lord Seraphal, what on earth happened? Rias Grimoire asked cautiously, her tone carrying a hint of worry. Rias Grimoire wasn't worried about the Mao. What she couldn't let go of was her best friend, Sona. Last night, through the magic projection, she saw that Sona's eyes had completely lost their light, without even a shred of energy left. She had asked, but Sona didn't say anything. On the train to the human world today, Sona's older sister, Seraphal, also had a visibly off expression. The younger sister looked like she had lost her soul, filled with resentment. As for the older sister, she was suppressing a stomach full of rage. Now, Seraphal was just short of a target to let her explode on. Rias Grimoire and the others knew very well that as soon as this target showed up, this Mao would definitely unleash her full power and blast them into ashes. It's nothing, just some diplomatic nonsense. Seraphal brushed it off casually. She couldn't even sort out the mess in her head right now, and besides, this kind of secret was really not convenient to share. Seeing that the other party didn't want to talk about it, Rias Grimoire tactfully dropped the subject. The train arrived in the human world, but it stopped before reaching Kuo town. Seraphal glanced in the direction of Kuo town, her tone stifled with resentment. Little Rias, I'll get off first. Tell Sona for me that I'll visit her in a few days. In the Far East, Yusaka, the commander-in-chief of the Kyoto Yokai, was a diplomatic target that the underworld had been actively trying to win over. Seraphal really wanted to rush to Kuo town right now and crush that person to powder. But the affairs of the underworld were more important than her personal grudges. As one of the 4 great Satans, she still had this level of awareness. It was clearly a contract signed on Sona, so how did it end up on me? Serafal went more and more furious the more she thought about it. A black gold contract chain emerged on her fair forehead. It fit perfectly with the one on Sona's forehead. The 2 chains could connect flawlessly. That guy couldn't have set up this kind of trick, he doesn't have the ability. Serafal and Sona stood at different heights, so they naturally saw things differently. During the Great War, she was already not weak. That man was indeed stronger than her, but only by a limited margin. To quietly set up a backup plan in the contract that could affect her was simply impossible. Not to mention her current strength had reached the peak of the Super Devil King class, not a single bit inferior to that man. Rather, it's because this marriage contract suddenly became more than 10 times stronger, causing the contract on Sona to extend to me. And even with my strength, I can't break it. Something must have happened on that fiancé's side. It must be. Serafal clenched her teeth tightly. She had already made her calculations in her mind. Once she settled the matters in Kyoto, she would head straight to Kuo town to grind that so-called fiancé's bones to ashes. She refused to believe that one of the 4 great Satans of the underworld could actually be bound hand and foot by a mere marriage contract. To have her, a dignified Mao, marry a normal human. If word of this got out, the Citri clan losing face would be a minor issue, the entire underworld would become a laughingstock. In the suburban forest of Kuo town, several massive trees, too wide for 3 people to hug, were cleanly snapped in half. The cuts were smooth, and crimson gold flames swept up the trunks, swallowing the remains entirely in the blink of an eye. A few dark shadows lay on the ground, completely burned to ashes. For this thing, while the input of holy power remains the same, the length of the blade will multiply along with the boosted gear. Luo Yu held the sword in his hand, weighed it, and continued, moreover, the crimson holy flames produced by this holy sword suppress devils to a degree that is more than a level above other holy swords. He paused for a moment. Normal devils will die the moment they touch it, without even a chance to struggle. It's not as harsh on other races, just acting as ordinary holy flames. Luo Yu looked down, examining the sword in his hand. Indeed, this was a holy sword. Yesterday, Diedrich directly fused the hilt of the first holy sword into the boosted gear, making this sword a part of the gauntlet. The hilt was a roaring red dragon with its mouth open, its body extending to form the grip, its wings spread out to form the guard, and its head facing upward to firmly support the blade's position. There was no physical blade. Instead, a blade condensed from golden light was wrapped in a layer of fire, the crimson holy flames he had just mentioned. The other abilities of this sword weren't particularly outstanding. Its greatest advantage was this flame, which specifically countered devils. But for Luo Yu, it was enough. At least it made up for his shortcoming in weaponry. Let's call it the Crimson Dragon Holy Sword, its appearance certainly fits the name. Luo Yu casually twirled the sword a few times and summoned the boosted gear. He stared at the gauntlet for a moment. It looked visibly different from its previous dark red appearance. Diedrich was right. The compatibility between this gauntlet and the holy power inside me is extremely high. It's almost as if it has run through my body countless times, operating without the slightest obstacle. This way, the path to developing the Aurora Juggernaut drive form will be much smoother. The boosted gear had completely adapted to the holy power within his body. If anything were to happen to him now, the next successor wouldn't receive a gauntlet with such perfect compatibility. Without holy power as an energy source, the mere resistance carried by the gauntlet itself would be enough to prevent the other party from even achieving a balance breaker. Of course, this had nothing to do with him anymore. Partner, if it's convenient for you, it's best to open the path to heaven as soon as possible. Just as Luo Yu was about to leave, Diedrich's voice suddenly rang in his ears. Diedrich, you're awake. He had only been unconscious for less than a day. Given the sleep-loving nature of dragons, Luo Yu had originally thought he would have to wait at least several months. It was just embedding the materials currently on hand into the boosted gear. This minor modification didn't take much effort. I see. Luo Yu really didn't understand much about this kind of thing. By the way, Diedrich, isn't it a bit rushed for you to tell me to hurry up and open the passage to heaven? Heaven is probably turning the world upside down looking for someone right now. Luo Yu had originally planned to wait a few months until things quieted down in heaven before quietly using the spatial coordinates in his possession to sneakily forge a path to heaven. When you broke through to the Mao class, I sensed a trace of an old friend's aura in the depths of the mirror lake of light. If it really is him, the second step of your dragon reincarnation will be completed very soon. Really? Luo Yu's face instantly lit up. His dragon reincarnation using dragon essence blood was only the first step of transforming into a dragon. The change in his bloodline was complete. But in this world, some dragons have a special characteristic, and that is the dragon soul, the origin dragon soul carrying the trait of immortality. Just like heavenly dragons such as Didrag, they possess an origin dragon soul that even God cannot destroy, only seal within a sacred gear. The dragon soul of the evil dragon King Vritra was even sliced into several parts and sealed within different sacred gears, yet it remained completely unharmed. Of course, dragon species possessing an origin dragon soul are miserably few in this world, all of them being famous names, the former 2 heavenly dragons, the 5 great dragon kings, and the notoriously evil high-class evil dragons. The second step of the dragon reincarnation he designed was to convert the origin dragon soul. The prerequisite was to obtain a part, or even an entire origin dragon soul. His original plan was to find a way to acquire the 4 sacred gears, Black Dragon Pulse, Black Flame of the Evil Dragon, Pitch Black Territory, and Dragon Prison, and extract the origin dragon soul of the evil dragon King Vritra sealed within them. To his surprise, Didrag gave him an unexpected pleasant surprise. There were very few who could be called an old friend by Didrag, and Luo Yu could guess the general situation of this old friend. Using it for the second step of the dragon reincarnation would definitely be much stronger than using the origin dragon soul of the evil dragon King Vritra. Besides, those 3 sacred gears, the black flame of the evil dragon, pitch black territory, and dragon prison, should all be in Azazel's hands. Snatching sacred gears from that guy was no easy task. That cold, gloomy aura, there is absolutely no way I could have misfelt it. Didrag's tone turned serious. It should currently be in a sealed state, trapped deep within the mirror lake of light. For you, it is far more suitable than the evil dragon King Vritra. Luo Yu's expression grew serious, and he nodded firmly. This matter concerned his future path, he couldn't afford any carelessness, and delaying even for a second would be a waste. If this opportunity slipped away, trying to find another breakthrough like this would be harder than finding a needle in a haystack. Inside the villa, the first floor lobby was so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. You said the contract has changed. Rias Grimori sat on the sofa, staring at Sona across from her with a face full of shock. Sona's brow was tightly furrowed, and the dark gold contract chain on her forehead was even more striking than before. Rias Grimori remembered clearly that when she saw it last time in the underworld, the color and patterns were not like this. Although there were still some common nodes that matched, the overall design was completely different. She never expected that right after arriving in the human world and settling her people down, she would hear such news. The contract had changed. On the contrary, its binding force had become even stronger. All the methods they had previously thought of, using loopholes in the agreement to bypass the contract, were now completely useless. There was simply no way to use the old tricks to secretly nullify the contract. No wonder Sona had such an expression. This was practically kicking them from heaven straight into hell. That contract was like a birdcage, locking Sona tightly inside. Rias Grimori understood this kind of situation all too well. Just like Sona, she carried the shackles of an arranged marriage and was desperately struggling to break free. Previously, she had been happy for Sona, thinking her friend was finally going to shake off this burden. Yet after just a few short days, Sona had not only failed to untie herself but was instead being strangled by it. Is there really no way to break it? Sona shook her head weakly. If there were really a way, would I have waited until now? Rias Grimori sighed. Suddenly, she thought of something. Lady Seraphal. My sister already tried a long time ago. Sona said, she even brought my brother and the other Satans to try, but not a single one of them could undo it. No, Rias Grimori interrupted Sona. When I came to the human world today, I came together with Lady Seraphal. It's just. Her expression became strange. Her expression was very off. Rias Grimoire recounted Seraphal's unusual behavior in detail. She glanced at the dark gold contract mark on Sona's forehead and lowered her voice. Sona, that chain of yours looks off. It seems like only half of it is left, and the other half seems to be connected to someone else. Sona's face turned instantly pale. She understood the implication in Rias Grimoire's words. At first, she hadn't thought in that direction at all. But now, connecting her sister's anomaly and adding the fact that she could faintly sense the existence of another person through the contract. How could that be? Sona froze in place, as if struck by lightning. That contract chain was on her sister as well. Her sister was one of the 4 great Satans of the underworld. Her eyes were filled with disbelief, and she kept murmuring, "Impossible." But a voice in her heart told her, this was the truth. Both she and her sister were bound by this contract. Could it be that she had stumbled into something and triggered a contingency plan left by someone, thereby dragging her sister into it as well? Sona didn't know the truth, and her heart was flooded with guilt and self-blame. Sona. Rias Grimoire looked at her worriedly, seeing that she was completely dazed. I'm fine, just a bit of a headache. Sona supported her forehead with her hand, her mind in complete disarray. She really didn't know what to do anymore. With even her sister bound by this contract, was the next head of House Citri and a Satan of the underworld really going to marry an ordinary human together? That was absolutely impossible. House Citri couldn't afford to lose face like this, and neither could the underworld. At this moment, Sona and her sister Seraphal shared the exact same thought. Rias, about today's matter. Before Sona could finish, Rias Grimoire interrupted her. Don't worry, I won't speak a word of this. I swear on the honor of the Grimoire clan. Thank you. Looking at the exhausted Sona, Rias Grimoire instead became more interested in the other protagonist behind this matter. Luo Yu, a guy with superb chess skills and perhaps some mysterious methods, but who was ultimately still just an ordinary human. Sona's fiancé. And now, Lady Seraphal, one of the 4 great Satans of the underworld, had to be added to the list. Although it wasn't fully confirmed yet, it was practically a certainty. It was hard to imagine what kind of uproar this news would cause if it spread to the underworld. Furthermore, he was also Akino's childhood playmate. Judging by Akino's reaction that day, her feelings for Luo Yu were anything but ordinary. Luo Yu, what kind of person are you exactly? As for the contract on Sona, do you actually know about it or not? This was the first person Rias Grimoire had ever developed such a strong interest in without even meeting them. Unfortunately, he wasn't at the villa today. Otherwise, she would have to see with her own eyes if he really had 3 heads and 6 arms. A week passed in the blink of an eye. Day and night, Luo Yu was busy opening a new spatial pathway to heaven. In the villa where he lived, he had set up illusionary arcane magic whenever he was away to fool the eyes of others. Coupled with the fact that he was already a homebody who huddled in his room all day without going out, no one found it unusual. After all, the others in the villa, including Sona, had always thought he was an otaku, a standard shut-in. Moreover, during the times he occasionally stayed at the villa, he noticed that Sona seemed to be deliberately avoiding him. Previously, she would invite him to play chess, but lately, they barely ran into each other, and even when they did by chance, she would just lower her head and hurry away. Luo Yu felt a bit puzzled, but now was not the time to ponder such trivial matters. The most important thing at hand was to open the path to heaven as quickly as possible. There was a small park on the outskirts of Kuo town that Luo Yu used to visit often when he was a child. Now, this park had long been abandoned, as desolate as a ghost town, with not a single household nearby. This kind of gloomy, deserted place was usually where only stray devils liked to nest. The spatial pathway Luo Yu newly opened was located right here, and it had been completely cleared. The stray devils nearby have all been cleaned out, but just to be safe, I should set up some protection. He casually set up a barrier, covering the 3-meter-high spatial pathway that looked like a transparent vortex to prevent anyone from wandering in by mistake. The remaining security measures could wait until later. Luo Yu plunged headfirst into the spatial pathway. As soon as he entered, violent spatial forces rushed at him. This newly opened pathway was not a bit more stable than the previous one, but he had no time to slowly reinforce and stabilize it now. If I only had the strength of an ultimate class devil right now, I'm afraid these violent spatial turbulences would tear me to shreds. Even if I am of the dragon race and my body is strong enough, I wouldn't be able to withstand it. Luo Yu transformed directly, turning into a holy light dragon over 30 jong long. As he exhaled a breath of holy and pure dragon breath, a large portion of the oncoming spatial force was wiped out. In the gaps of the turbulence, Luo Yu's massive body continuously shuttled forward. Time and again, his dragon breath blasted out fiercely, clearing away the obstacles ahead. The edge of the seventh layer of heaven was covered by a vast forest. The elemental concentration here was much thinner than inside the seventh layer of heaven, and those living here were mostly weaker divine beasts and sacred beasts. Yet in this originally peaceful forest, the painful roars of a young beast could be faintly heard. A young, white-haired priest stood in front of a tree, his eyes gleaming with madness and bloodlust. Holding a blade in his hand, he scraped and slashed at a unicorn calf pinned to the tree trunk. The little unicorn was covered in blood, its originally snow-white fur stained bright red, and weak wails escaped its mouth. Father Fried, stop, it's already injured. A blonde, blue-eyed sister stepped forward, blocking the front of the unicorn calf. She was not tall, with a delicate and fragile appearance, but her eyes held an unyielding stubbornness as she stared straight at Fried's twisted face. The ring on her finger was a sacred gear called Twilight Healing. A pale golden light spread from her fingertips, gradually repairing the wounds on the little unicorn. Tisk, holy maiden, it's just a beast. There are plenty of these things in heaven, killing one or two won't hurt anyone. Fried didn't take it seriously at all. He paused, his lips curling into an uncomfortable smile. Or, how about you take a slash for it? I've never tried what it feels like for a blade to slice through a holy maiden's skin. That sensation must be absolutely wonderful. After saying that, he stuck out his tongue and licked the residual blood on the blade. Asia Argento took a step back in fear. Yet she still fiercely shielded the unicorn calf, refusing to budge. How disgusting. Asia Argento's desperate attempt to protect the calf was an eyesore to Fried. He wished he could carve her up piece by piece right now. But not now. Just as Fried was growing increasingly impatient and planned to bypass Asia Argento to strike the unicorn directly. A transparent spatial rift suddenly tore open in the air. Violent spatial forces rushed over. An intruder. Without a second thought, Fried grabbed Asia Argento and threw her toward the spatial pathway, turning around and sprinting into the distance. Although he was crazy, he knew very well, none of those who could tear open a spatial pathway to break into heaven were weak. The first thing such a person would do is eliminate any witnesses, and he didn't want to die such a senseless death. For trash like you, death is the best outcome. A massive white dragon claw reached out from the rift. Exuding sharp brilliance, its killing intent was piercingly cold. The claws were so fast that their trajectory was completely invisible as they swiped directly at Father Fried Selzen. No. Father Fried Selzen only had time to let out an unwilling roar before being crushed into a mist of blood in midair. Asia Argento lay unconscious, slumped on the ground. Luo Yu looked down at the unconscious girl before him, his expression somewhat strange. She wasn't very old, but she was quite well developed. He hadn't expected to run into her in heaven. Is she here to receive Michael's baptism, or to sign a contract with a divine or sacred beast? At a certain stage, the younger generation of the church would be summoned to heaven by Michael, either to receive a baptism or to form a contract with a divine or sacred beast. This was the seventh heaven, which happened to be the area where divine and sacred beasts roamed. She was likely here to sign a contract, similar to the devil's familiar forest. Thus, seeing Asia Argento and Father Fried Selzen appear in heaven didn't surprise Luo Yu. Father Fried Selzen hadn't defected yet. At this time, he was still a top exorcist directly under the church, qualified to be summoned to heaven. Under the healing of the holy light spell, the unicorn cub's injuries had improved significantly. It ran over to Asia Argento's side and licked her face with its tongue. Then, just as Asia Argento had protected it earlier, the little creature used its even smaller body to shield her, staring intently at Luo Yu's over 30 jong long holy light dragon. A flash of surprise crossed Luo Yu's eyes. A golden magic circle lit up beneath the unicorn cub's feet, and it then sank completely into Asia Argento's body, vanishing from sight. A sacred beast contract. Luo Yu hadn't expected that his appearance would instead facilitate Asia Argento's contract with this sacred beast. The divine and sacred beasts of heaven weren't as easygoing as those in the familiar forest, each and every one of them had ridiculously high standards. The church might not produce such a lucky person once in several years. Judging by the situation just now, if he hadn't suddenly appeared and killed Father Fried Selzen, that guy would have already beaten this unicorn cub to death. Luo Yu glanced at the still wary unicorn cub, spread his sky-blotting wings, and flew directly toward the mirror lake of light. He was short on time and had no leisure to waste here. A few minutes later, Asia Argento slowly woke up, her eyes looking around dazedly as she watched the unicorn cub that kept nuzzling her. She remembered being thrown by Father Fried Selzen earlier and crashing into a massive shadow. Before she could get a clear look, she had fainted. Where was Father Fried Selzen? Toei, the seventh heaven was very lively. Luo Yu's massive body was hidden in the clouds, giving him a complete view of everything below. Priests, nuns, and exorcists from the church were everywhere, running around to find divine or sacred beasts suitable for themselves. There were also quite a few angels patrolling back and forth, keeping an eye on the surroundings. He didn't know if it was because of the commotion Luo Yu had caused earlier, or because this batch of young people from the church had arrived. There were even more people at the Mirror Lake of Light. In the seventh heaven, most of the powerful divine and sacred beasts gathered around the Mirror Lake of Light, so the young people of the church naturally wouldn't miss this place. If they were lucky, they might be able to contract a divine or sacred beast here. That would give them the greatest backing for the rest of their lives. Luo Yu even saw that young holy light dragon, with several young priests eagerly following behind its tail. With a loud boom, Luo Yu landed on the shore of the Mirror Lake of Light, and the surrounding people quickly backed away in awe. Looking at this massive body, it had to be a Mao-class holy light dragon. They were certainly not qualified to contract such a creature. Ignoring the gazes around him, Luo Yu dived straight into the Mirror Lake of Light and charged toward its depths. It was no longer possible to sneak into the lake secretly, and acting hesitantly would only arouse suspicion. After breaking through to the Mao class, he found that the dense light elements in the lake water no longer affected him. Back when he was still an ultimate class devil, he could only endure the corrosion of the light elements, but now it was completely different. Under Diedreg's guidance, Luo Yu quickly reached the deepest part of the lake bed. The concentration of light elements here was beyond words. Even though he was now Mao class, taking a single sip would be hard to bear. Oh, what do we have here? A fake dragon of holy light. A voice so cold it seemed capable of corroding the soul suddenly exploded in Luo Yu's ears. Luo Yu looked toward the source of the voice. In a deep trench several hundred jong wide lay a dark black, serpentine, three-eyed giant dragon that was several times larger than him. Its body was tightly covered in black scales, which were wrapped in corrosive black mist. The light elements at the bottom of the lake were terrifyingly dense, yet as soon as they touched the black mist, they were eaten away, turning black bit by bit and transforming into black water. However, the dragon's form appeared somewhat illusory. It was a dragon soul, not a physical body. Even so, it was still pinned down tightly by over 20 thick holy chains that pierced through its body, confining it to the spot. Luo Yu said with a grim face, uttering the true name of the dragon before him. The primordial dragon of darkness, Apophis. This evil dragon was said to be able to swallow and corrode all matter with its black water, and it was a genuine heavenly dragon class. In other words, a super devil. Luo Yu had guessed before that the old acquaintance Diedreg mentioned would be a high-ranking evil dragon. After all, only evil dragons would be sealed in heaven. But the source dragon soul of this heavenly dragon class before him was even more formidable than he had imagined. At this, Luo Yu's eyes lit up. If he could use a heavenly dragon class source dragon soul to complete the second step of his dragon reincarnation, his potential and foundation would absolutely skyrocket. Kid, that look in your eyes makes me very unhappy. For a human brat to dare treat it as prey was simply seeking death. Apophis, long time no see. Your disgusting black water is still around, I see. Diedreg's majestic voice rang out of thin air. Quote. Hey. Apophis froze for a moment, his dragon eyes narrowing. Diedreg, this brat is your host. Haven't seen you in so many years, and your taste in choosing people has only gotten worse. Do you think that by using alchemy to stuff a soul into the bones of a holy light dragon, he can become a member of the dragon race? He had seen too many of these human tricks in ancient times. In the end, all of those people rotted away inside their decaying vessels, dying in immense agony. Diedrag sneered. Apophis, after being locked up for so long, have your eyes gone bad? Can't you see how perfectly this holy light dragon body fits my partner? Only then did Apophis notice that the compatibility between the human kid and the holy light dragon was almost unbelievably perfect. It was as if this dragon body had originally grown from him. Suddenly, a term jumped into his mind. Devil reincarnation. He had been sealed beneath heaven for so many years, trapped here since before the Great War, but he was by no means ignorant of the outside world. It seems you remember, Diedrag said with pride in his voice. My host of this generation and I used devil reincarnation to create dragon reincarnation. It can perfectly turn other races into the dragon race. Although Luo Yu's intellect and experiments deserved most of the credit, Diedrag knew very well that without a heavenly dragon like himself teaching everything he knew, Luo Yu's theories and conjectures about the dragon species would never have succeeded. Luo Yu stared at Apophis, his gaze no different from looking at a piece of merchandise. The body needs to be refined with essence blood, and the soul must be filled with a dragon soul. Today, I'll borrow your source dragon soul to help me complete the dragon reincarnation. Apophis's dragon eyes instantly turned cold, and killing intent surged. Even the creator god had never dared to covet his source dragon soul, yet Diedrag and this human brat were incredibly bold. Diedrag, do you think just because I'm sealed here, you can easily handle me? The moment those words fell, black water surged out, carrying a power that could corrode and swallow everything, as it lunged toward Luo Yu. Apophis, if you were still in your prime, I would turn around and run without a second thought. Unfortunately, your source dragon soul is locked down along with your body. I'm quite curious to see how much strength you can squeeze out now. Luo Yu opened his mouth, and a holy dragon breath shot out like an aurora. At the bottom of the mirror lake of light, the light elements were as thick as water. The power of Luo Yu's dragon breath was magnified several times. In contrast, Apophis's black water was heavily suppressed. Bang! A dull, massive explosion erupted at the bottom of the lake. The black water was forcefully blasted apart, and the holy dragon breath slammed squarely into Apophis. That piece of trash creator god. Apophis glared fiercely at the chains on his body. If not for this thing, he would have torn this human brat to shreds long ago. End this quickly, Luo Yu. Your current attacks can't hurt Apophis at all. Don't forget we're here to take it, not to destroy it. If the commotion is too big, it'll be troublesome if it attracts the seraphs. Luo Yu nodded and directly summoned the boosted gear. A layer of dark red armor quickly enveloped the left arm of his holy light dragon form. In the exact center of the armor, a jade green gem was embedded. The appearance of this sacred gear would automatically change according to the host state. Balance breaker. Luo Yu initiated his balance breaker without hesitation. The emerald green light instantly exploded. In the next second, his appearance began to change dramatically. His originally over 30 jong long body expanded frantically, shooting up to over 50 jong in just a few seconds. His size was now almost as large as Apophis's. His pure white scales and the wings on his back were all stained deep crimson. The flames originally wrapped around his limbs also turned into the Crimson Emperor flame, which could burn all things. Behind him, 9 massive crimson dragon holy swords also materialized out of thin air. This was his primary means of slaughter. At this moment, Luo Yu's aura surged directly to the peak of the Super Devil King class. Heaven, the 8th Heaven's Temple. Michael and Raphael sat facing each other, discussing the baptism of the church's younger generation. Suddenly, both of them sensed a dragon pressure at the same time. This aura was both familiar and somewhat strange. It even brought a sense of oppression. This is the dragon pressure of the Red Dragon Emperor. Raphael instantly flared up in anger. He still dares to come to heaven. Does he really treat our heaven as his back garden? Even Michael, who was famous for his good temper in the 3 realms, had a flash of displeasure in his eyes. No one would be happy about having their home repeatedly broken into. Immediately after, Michael's expression changed. Oh no, the Red Dragon Emperor is at the bottom of the mirror lake of light. The primordial dragon of darkness, Apophis, is sealed there. He wants to break the seal. Without needing Michael to say more, Raphael immediately spread his wings and rushed toward the mirror lake of light in the seventh heaven. Michael, who remained in the temple, immediately contacted Gabriel and Uriel. Having these two seraphs also rushed to reinforce Raphael. They had to stop the Red Dragon Emperor from destroying Apophis's seal. If the primordial dragon of darkness really broke free from the seal, it would absolutely be a major catastrophe for heaven. After all, the current heaven had no powerhouse at the super devil level. There was another point that concerned Michael. The aura on the Red Dragon Emperor was completely different from when he broke into heaven last time. Last time, a human presence could still be felt. Now, it is completely a pure dragon-type presence. But how is that possible? Above the mirror lake of light, more and more angels were gathering. The younger generation of the church stood by the lakeside, their faces filled with confusion. What's happening to heaven? With such a huge commotion, could it be that devils or fallen angels have invaded? Many harbored this speculation in their hearts. Hurry up, partner. The seraphim are about to arrive, and it'll be trouble then. Diedrag's voice exploded in Luo Yu's mind. Luo Yu didn't waste words and responded directly with action. The holy dragon breath pressed down like a wall, firmly blocking the black water spewed by Apophis. Although the black water was suppressed, it would still be fatal if it touched him. Luo Yu dashed in close and, before Apophis could react, stomped hard on its dragon head. Bang! The dragon's head was violently stomped into the mud at the bottom of the lake. 5 crimson dragon holy swords flew out simultaneously, precisely piercing into Apophis's origin dragon soul. Although it couldn't wound it, it was enough to render it immobile. You lowly ant! Apophis roared in anger. As a grand ancient existence, it was actually stepped on by a Mao-class fellow. This was simply the greatest humiliation of its life. Behave yourself, Apophis. Can't you see? I'm helping you break the seal. Bullshit, human brat. Apophis gnashed its teeth. There were 2 layers of seals on its body. One layer was left by Michael, with chains piercing through its dragon soul, locking it beneath the mirror lake of light. The other layer was the truly fatal one, hidden deep within its dragon soul, a rune personally carved by the god of destruction. This human brat was merely destroying Michael's sealing chains. The god of destruction's rune hadn't budged at all. This guy clearly wanted to capture it and use it as a sacrifice for dragon reincarnation. Break. In no time, all the sealing chains laid down by Michael shattered completely. Countless angels had already gathered above the mirror lake of light, and even 3 seraphim had arrived, ready to break through the lake's surface and charge down at any moment. Retrieve. Luo Yu pressed his massive dragon claw onto Apophis. A black hole-like vortex suddenly appeared in the center of his dragon claw. Apophis frantically twisted its body, struggling. But it couldn't withstand the suction of the vortex at all. It shrank while roaring, and was finally sucked directly into the vortex. Done. Luo Yu grinned. Risking being hunted down by heaven, he had finally obtained the origin dragon soul of the primordial eclipse dragon, Apophis. Being able to succeed so smoothly was also thanks to the sealing rune left by the god of destruction. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to crush it so easily, and this origin dragon soul wouldn't have been obtained so effortlessly. Above the mirror lake of light, the angel army blotted out the sky. Battle angels with 3 wings or more were densely packed, and any single one picked out at random was no weaker than a high-class devil. There were as many as 10 5-winged angel commanders. On top of that, the 3 seraphim, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael, were personally presiding over the situation. Heaven's grand array had already been set up, with layers of blockades, all to prevent the primordial eclipse dragon Apophis from escaping. A lineup like this would require even an ordinary super devil to exert quite some effort to break through. In the center of Luo Yu's dragon claw, the depths of the vortex connected to the internal space of the boosted gear. Diedrag's dragon soul was right there. With that guy around, the item could be completely and steadily suppressed. They really gave me quite a lot of face. Aside from Michael, who has to watch over the system, all the remaining seraphim of heaven have come. Luo Yu looked through the lake's surface at the vast white array of the angel army above the mirror lake of light. Breaking out this time would be a bit of a hassle. The lake's surface exploded. With a loud boom, a 1,000-foot wave of water surged into the sky. A massive dragon shadow soared into the sky from the bottom of the lake, landing directly in the dead center of the angel army. Dragon pressure swept in all directions, causing many angels to sway. Is this a dragon? Raphael furrowed his brows tightly, staring at the behemoth before him. The surrounding battle angels, while enduring the dragon pressure, were filled with confusion. They had clearly come to capture the Red Dragon Emperor. Why did a dragon suddenly appear? And it was even a Super Devil King-class dragon. An existence of the same tier as the Archangels. No, that's not right. Uriel suddenly spoke up. He is the Red Dragon Emperor. That aura on him cannot be mistaken. Turning into this appearance must be related to his hunting of dragons and seizing of their essence blood over the years. Gabriel and Raphael both froze for a moment. Indeed, other things might be mistaken, but that aura absolutely could not be. Although there was a huge change, and the human presence had completely vanished. Perhaps it really was the result of those dragon essence bloods, just as Uriel said. Everyone, could you do me a favor? Luo Yu spoke. I didn't intend to make an enemy of heaven. After transforming into the Holy Light Dragon, coupled with the balance breaker of the boosted gear, Luo Yu's voice naturally carried a heavy majesty. Move aside. HMPH, Red Dragon Emperor, do you really think heaven is your backyard, to come and go as you please? Raphael's face turned pale with anger. In his eyes, the Red Dragon Emperor breaking into heaven repeatedly was already an unpardonable sin, and he absolutely had to receive heaven's judgment. Red Dragon Emperor, hand over the origin dragon soul of the primordial eclipse dragon, Apophis, and surrender quietly. I, Gabriel, promise you that we will not take your life. Gabriel, soft-hearted, was still trying to persuade him. Luo Yu sneered. Do you really think you have me cornered? As soon as he finished speaking, a brutal dragon pressure suddenly exploded from his body, sweeping in all directions. The young churchgoers watching below couldn't withstand this pressure. It felt as if a 1,000-pound boulder were pressing down on them, their legs giving out as they knelt directly onto the ground. Watch out! Gabriel and the others were startled, none of them expecting the Red Dragon Emperor to strike so suddenly. Luo Yu's massive body instantly turned into a beam of light, pouncing straight toward the left wing of the array. He knew clearly in his heart that if he couldn't break the array set up by these angels, he would have almost no chance of escaping. While he was speaking earlier, he had been observing. The left wing had the fewest angels, and although Raphael was an archangel, his specialty lay in healing and protection, making his combat strength the lowest among the 4 seraphim. Naturally, one should target the weakest link. In almost the blink of an eye, Luo Yu's massive figure appeared before Raphael, and a dragon claw wrapped in crimson emperor flame, carrying destructive power, slapped down ruthlessly. Holy shield protection. Unflustered, Raphael immediately cast his strongest defensive divine art. A holy shield blocked his front. In his view, this was enough to block the Red Dragon Emperor's attack. But right at that moment, a sharp light flashed in Luo Yu's eyes. Gabriel's heart skipped a beat, but it was already too late to warn Raphael. Boost. 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 Diedrege's voice became mechanical and cold. In an instant, Luo Yu's attack power skyrocketed several times over, and a terrifying aura that made one's soul tremble quietly spread. One could even see the space around that massive dragon claw twisting and blurring. With a sharp crack, not good. Raphael's face changed dramatically, but at this point, whether to continue holding the line or to dodge, it was already too late. The holy shield protection was torn to shreds, and torn along with it was more than half of his right side. A large amount of angel blood rained down from the sky, like a crimson downpour, dyeing the 7th layer, the habitat of divine and sacred beasts, with a pungent, bloody scent. Raphael screamed as he crashed onto the ground. What pained him was not his torn body, but the fire burning on his wound. That fire was called the Crimson Emperor Flame, burning as if it were latched onto his very soul. Raphael. Gabriel and Uriel's expressions changed completely. How could Luo Yu miss this opportunity? Taking advantage of the crack in the left wing of the angel array, he charged straight toward the edge of the 7th layer. Uriel turned, wanting to give chase. Suddenly, Michael's voice rang in his ears. Don't chase the Red Dragon Emperor, save Raphael first. What he is stained with is Diedrege's blazing hellfire, once ignited, it cannot be extinguished. Uriel gritted his teeth and nodded, watching helplessly as the silhouette of the Red Dragon Emperor vanished into the horizon. This time, heaven had been thoroughly played. Kuo Town. Late at night, inside the run-down park. With a loud crash, the ground shook violently. Luo Yu's massive body crashed out of the spatial portal, and the portal collapsed immediately. Reverting to his human form, he mused that the path to heaven was now completely cut off. His aura had surely been flagged by the heaven system, so the trick of posing as the Holy Light Dragon wouldn't work anymore. He would have to find a new place to cultivate. But obtaining Apophis's origin dragon soul made it all worth it. Luo Yu reached out to tear open the barrier he had set up previously in heaven, and just as he took a step forward, Era. Ah you, so you're actually a dragon. The voice was coquettish and soft, yet it carried an underlying chill. Luo Yu looked up. Standing before him was a smiling girl. Though she smiled, she radiated a freezing aura, making it clear at a glance that she was in a terrible mood. Akino. The late night wind blew past, bringing a chill. Inside the run-down park, Akino Himehima's face wore a half-smile, carrying a hint of mischief. Luo Yu felt completely guilty. He hadn't expected her to be waiting here. The barrier he had casually set up was fine for fooling ordinary people or middle-class devils, but Akino was a high-class devil, so it couldn't block her at all. Long time no see, Akino. Luo Yu braced himself and spoke first. Akino Himehima didn't speak, just staring at him like that. There was pleasant surprise in her eyes, but even more resentment. By the park's swings, two figures, one sitting and one standing. Akino Himehima sat on the rusty swing, holding a ball of lightning in her hand. The electric arcs crackled at her fingertips, the blue-white light dancing across her fair skin. I thought you were going to say, nice to meet you, beautiful lady. With a smile on her lips, her voice hid a trace of danger. I was all ready to blast you with my lightning magic, but look at you, not even saying hello. Luo Yu stood behind her, looking up at the old tree. This place evoked too many memories. Akino, my memory was sealed by your hypnosis before. I wasn't faking it. He sighed. The ground beneath his feet was still the same stone slab he had stepped on as a child, and the slide next to them had long since faded. As long as it's you saying it, I'll believe it. Akino Himehima swayed the swing slightly, her voice soft, as if returning to many years ago. When you were little, you loved hearing me say that the most, right? Your tone clearly says you don't believe me. Luo Yu shook his head. Then think about it yourself. Akino Himehima turned back to look at him. If one day you suddenly found out that the person you like was already someone else's fiancé, could you still say, I believe you, so easily? Yes, Luo Yu answered resolutely. Akino Himehima froze for a second, then turned back, pouting. You've gone bad, ah you. Now you're just like those bad women, telling lies the moment you open your mouth. I really didn't know about Sona's matter.
Thanks for watching my video. Please like and share it.